Hello, hello, everybody. I am Jessika for Justice. It is Saturday, March 1st, and I have a special edition live today. I have a good friend of mine waiting in the waiting room, I guess. And together we're going to talk about the Texas crime crisis, what's going on in Texas, specifically what is really happening in Harris County and Travis County. We're seeing a lot of the same things happen between these two counties. I have, excuse me, I have some videos of recent things that have happened in both counties that I'll play while we're having this conversation. I'm going to go ahead and bring Michelle in a second. Hi, Forrest. Thank you for joining. I see Charmaine too. Hi, Charmaine. All right, so let's see. Oh, look, we're there together. Hi.
Hello.
Okay, and I can hear you just fine. So you are good to go. So this is my good friend, Michelle. Michelle and I met on Twitter, actually, and I'm not going to call it X because that's stupid. We met on Twitter and we both lived in Houston and we cared about the same stuff and we connected and we have so much in common. Mostly we care about victims and we care about crime, but she is a good friend of mine. But there's a lot of stuff that's been happening the last few years that her and I are both very concerned about. So one of them being, stuff that's happening with bail and bond in Texas. And we also have some stuff that's happening between the district attorney's office and some other things that are happening crime wise that are directly impacting victims. So I'm going to play a quick news clip to give you guys a some of the things that we're going to be discussing.
It is disgusting.
It is disgusting too.
Fair use of the word.
So the first video that I have has to do with Harris County. This is a mistake with the district attorney's office. So there we go. They had a suspect in custody and the district attorney's office did not file in time for someone's ringing my damn doorbell. Yeah, somebody is ringing my doorbell. I'm going to play this. And I will be right back. This is about 3 minutes.
DA Sean Teare admitting that mistakes were made when suspect Eric Brown was arrested on sexual assault charges and then let go before those charges were filed.
ABC 13's Maya Shea is live on campus where she has been pressing everyone involved. Maya?
That's right. For days now, we have been asking both the University of Houston's police department as well as the Harris County District Attorney's Office what happened, who made mistakes, when and where relating to the botched apprehension of this rape suspect. Tonight, the DA's office answered all of our questions, admitting some mistakes were made, while U of H police continue to remain quiet, only issuing the official statements.
The longer U of H rape suspect Eric Brown is on the loose, the more phone calls State Representative Jolanda Jones gets.
It's a concern for me because I've had people call my office. They're really upset. They don't feel safe.
Jones, whose district includes U of H, says students want to know why Brown was allowed to walk out of the Harris County jail Saturday, just hours after his arrest in assaulting a peace officer charges. Today, District Attorney Sean Teare admits even though U of H police did not ask specifically for a sexual assault charge when he was initially arrested, officers mentioned a sexual assault, and Teare says his intake division should have flagged it.
We should have had a more experienced prosecutor highlighted to look at that case. There were a lot of things internally that we're going to work through and fix. But the bottom line is he was released.
Teare also says his department has a specific sexual assault hotline staffed by high-ranking prosecutors, but U of H police did not call the hotline last week.
We have a dedicated phone number for sexual assault prosecutors that is 24 hours a day manned. Most of the large agencies reach out to that number. In this case, that didn't happen. Our prosecutors from our adult sex crimes reached out to University of Houston Police Department because they saw the news.
ABC 13 has repeatedly asked U of H to either corroborate or refute the DA's version of events, but its latest statement addressed none of our questions. Instead, stating in part, U of H and the Harris County District Attorney's Office are working together with a shared focus on apprehending Eric Brown. We best serve and protect our communities by holding offenders accountable, ensuring that all crimes are thoroughly investigated and prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. Jones says the statement and extra patrols are good starting points, but need more to be done.
Clearly, if there's expanded law enforcement presence, it's not working. So to try to figure out a community coordinated way to make the kids feel safe.
So Representative Jones says next Friday she's holding an emergency town hall meeting because she's getting so many calls from students concerned about their safety. She says there'll be an opportunity for the students to air out their concerns, and she's hoping U of H officials will actually attend the meeting and answer some questions. We'll keep you updated. Live at U of H, Maya Shea, ABC.
The irony of this being the reporter for the story I chose. Oh, Lord, but we're not going to get into all that. But so these are the kind of, oh God, look how I paused it. Okay.
Typical for her face, honestly.
Anyway, those kind of mistakes shouldn't happen. And these, like, the district attorney's office shouldn't make mistakes. You would think something like this would be a one-off, right? District attorney's offices can't possibly continuously make mistakes that impact public safety, right? Wrong. We also have a district attorney in Travis County. So for those of you that are not familiar with Texas, Harris County is Houston, Travis County is Austin. So there are actually multiple cases where the district attorney in Travis County did not file indictment within 90 days. If you don't file within 90 days, they automatically get bond, which is a huge issue. Why aren't you indicting these people? However, what you're going to notice with both of these district attorneys, Sean Teare passing the buck. Yeah, my cat will make an appearance. Everybody that watches me has seen my cat 50,000 times. I'm surprised she hasn't come up here yet. It's because there's somebody still home. When I'm home by myself, she's all in my face. So, I felt like Harris County District Attorney's Office was, not really taking responsibility for that. They're like, oh, they should have done this. They should have done that. It really shouldn't have happened. If somebody mentions a sexual assault, you would think that they would want to look into that more before just letting the guy go. And also, it's scary that you can assault a police officer and just automatically be released and not have those charges. And that's something that we're not even really discussing. Those charges are just forgotten about. He can just, attack a police officer and it's not okay. So in Travis County, the same thing is happening. Charges are being dismissed, but the most terrifying thing is that he's not getting indictments within those 90 days. So I'm going to play, this video is about 2 minutes.
The Travis County District Attorney is answering questions about why his office missed key deadlines, leading to at least 2 murder suspects getting out of jail on dramatically lowered bonds. KB senior reporter Tony Plohetsky is live at the DA's office downtown. And Tony, you just finished talking with DA José Garza.
Ashley, just minutes ago, and this is the first time that we have heard from him directly since we started asking questions and reporting on this issue within the past couple of days. Now, multiple judges have told me that this is an ongoing issue in criminal district court, with prosecutors missing deadlines and then them having to dramatically lower the bail amounts set for sometimes potentially dangerous defendants. Now, this case is tied to the murder suspect Stephen Morrison. He is accused of killing Kashawn Cage in a Southeast Austin apartment last October. Morson's initial bond was set at $800,000. Then it was lowered to $100 after the DA's office missed a 90-day deadline to present the case to a grand jury for indictment. Morson was indicted, but not until after that 90-day deadline. Now, here's what happened today. The judge approved raising his bond back up to $100,000, and he was taken into custody. Again, we just talked to the district attorney about this, and here's what he said.
What happened is that we had management challenges with a particular prosecutor. We took action and demoted that prosecutor. She resigned the next day. We appointed a new prosecutor. That prosecutor, from my perspective, has done excellent work to prepare this case. It was indicted on the 91st day, well before the bond reduction hearing. At the bond reduction hearing, we argued that this defendant was a threat to public safety. The court had plenty of authority to hold the defendant in custody at that moment.
So again, right there, the district attorney is talking about one specific case, but as part of our wide-ranging interview, we talked to him about this entire issue and what structures his office has in place to make sure that cases are, in fact, getting indicted in that 90-day window when a suspect remains in jail. We'll have more on KVUE News at 5.
So, a little birdie told me otherwise. So he made it sound like the prosecutor quit because of this. And from what I've heard, the prosecutor actually left weeks ago and had nothing to do with this case. So he knew that this was happening and he should have stepped in and done something. But he didn't. And this is not the first time. There are
And do you notice a pattern between Sean Teare and José Garza? Their first response is always to just
point fingers elsewhere
and blame everybody else and really deflect on what the actual issues are. You know, Sean ran his whole campaign talking about intake, and the first thing they did is screw it up. He was going to have it fixed day one. Mm-hmm. And it was going to be a miracle at how well these things were going to turn around because he was so amazing. We're talking about a district attorney who didn't even pay his own dues and take his classes on time and was sworn into his office with an invalid license because he hadn't paid his fees or taken his ongoing education classes. Yeah. And then we have, you know, if you can't keep up with your own bar license, how are you going to expect to be able to keep up with the third largest county in the nation and the amount of crime that we have?
Exactly. Yeah.
Same way.
Yeah. And for those of you that aren't familiar with what we're talking about, Sean Teare was elected district attorney and took office the beginning of this year. And the media found out that his license to practice law expired months prior. And he legally wasn't able to even practice law. So I don't know how you let something like that slip. And he's been very critical of the previous district attorney, Kim Ogg. And I know Kim, and I really like Kim as a person, but I also think that I thought she was an effective district attorney, especially with what she was handed, because she was battling judges and all this other stuff. And the justice system became very political. And the justice system is political, but it shouldn't be, because when I'm looking at who's going to protect the county and people, I don't care if somebody's a Republican or Democrat. I care about what they're going to do. And Kim Ogg, you know, she's a registered Democrat, but then you have the Democrats saying that she was too conservative because she worked with the other law leaders who were Republicans. Like, God forbid she's working with people in another party to try to make the county safer. Oh no. And she actually got a slap on the wrist by the Democratic Party for that. It was so ridiculous. For those of you that aren't in Harris County, it was just absolutely ridiculous. So yeah, the irony,
you can't indict Democrats if you're a Democrat district attorney. And so
Yes.
they were upset that she started investigating public corruption for Democrats in Harris County, and you can't do that. Well, I can tell you right now that when I had a gun in my face and I was being robbed, those guys never asked me who I voted for. And then going to trial, the prosecutor and everybody, nobody in there asked me who I voted for before trying this case. Crime is nonpartisan. It affects everybody, and the district attorney should also be able to work well with all sides as they represent everybody in the community, not just half.
Right, absolutely. And, you and I have had many political conversations and have to work with multiple people. Maybe we don't necessarily agree with their politics, but we need their help to move forward with crime. Just because you see me talking or have a photo with a politician doesn't mean I love this person. It just means that I need them to move forward to make something safer. And it shouldn't be like that, but there is a game in politics, and the only way we're going to get laws and stuff passed is by playing nice with one another. And the other issue that we're having in both counties is uh, bond issues. So one of the issues that the previous district attorney had was she was being blamed for um, people being let out on bond, and she had nothing to do with that. That has to do with judges. That all has to do with judges. It has absolutely nothing to do with anything else. And right now, there is a capital murder suspect that was given bond and is now out on bond. And it is the first time in 20 years that there has been a capital murder suspect for killing a law enforcement officer specifically. Of course, capital murder people have gotten bond previously, but when it comes to law enforcement, generally the system tries to do whatever so they don't get out. I watched Kim speak the other day on the news. So just to put this in your head, I want you to picture 830 people. That's a lot of people, right? 830 people. So right now in Harris County, there are 830 fugitives or they're out on bond for murder or capital murder. That's 830. So it's not like it never ever happens. The issue is they murdered a law enforcement officer and then their bond was lowered and then they somehow made the bond. So there was, we had another case of a month ago. A murder suspect's bond was 500,000 and it was reduced to 35,000. So I'm going to play a quick clip from Breaking Bond about that murder suspect. The one that had it 35,000 is ridiculous for homicide. And especially like the slap in the face in Travis County. $100 bond because the district attorney's office made a mistake. I'm glad they went back and fixed it. But like these families, I know what it's like to be waiting for the justice system to know if that person's going to be arrested. I know what it's like to have the person that murdered your loved one walking free and have to worry about running into that person. I know what it's like to be involved in the criminal justice system and have to depend on the justice system to keep you safe. So it's not so much about politics, it's that you and I care because we know what it's like and we know what it's like to not have the system back us up. And there's a reason why we're upset and we're outspoken and we're talking about these things because these things are not one-offs. They're happening over and over and over. It happens so much that Fox 26 has an entire series called Breaking Bond. And I'm going to go ahead and play this example.
On tonight's Breaking Bond, a 24-year-old murder suspect who had his bond amount reduced from $500,000 to just $35,000 is now accused of committing crime.
Fox 26's Randy Wallace joining us live from the courthouse with the latest in his ongoing series. Randy.
Yeah, Caroline, it's almost as if the court wanted Jalen George to bond out of jail. His bond amount was lowered 7 times before he became a free man.
I've not seen this many bond reductions on a murder case ever.
In January of 2021, Jalen George was out of jail on a personal recognizance bond after being charged with felony theft.
He basically reached over a counter and started grabbing cash from the cash register.
In June of 2021, police say George shot and killed his 15-year-old sister at 12,601 South Green Drive to prevent her from running away.
The brother and his girlfriend somehow got a hold of the 15-year-old girl and found her.
After his arrest, George's bond for capital murder is set at $500,000 in the 232nd Judge Josh Hill's court. 3 months later, it's reduced to $250,000. 3 months after that, it's lowered to $150,000. The capital murder charge is reduced to murder. George's $500,000 bond is eventually reduced to $35,000.
It's unbelievable that you can go from a $500,000 bond to a measly $35,000.
George posts bond in September of last year. According to court documents, it doesn't take him long to violate his bond conditions.
There were four motion to revoke his bonds, repeated bond violations.
Earlier this month, George was charged with 2 counts of robbery, bodily injury, and tampering with his electronic monitor. Jaden George is back behind bars with bonds totaling $800,000. Reporting live from the courthouse, Randy Wallace, Fox 20.
And of course, tampering with the ankle monitor and nothing happens. And did you guys know that ankle monitors are not monitored by law enforcement? Did y'all know that? They're monitored by some third-party company that has nothing to do with it, and they won't even give police the information to find that person if something happens. You think the ankle monitors are to protect you. They're not. They're there to make money, and some company that's not even in Texas is making the money, and somebody is paying. How much are the fees for the ankle monitors?
Typically around $6 a day.
Yeah.
And that doesn't include the cost of the monitor. And those charges can either be paid by the offender or they can be waived by the judge. So we get to pay those fees, which is typically is what is happening. Most of them are just having their fees waived regardless of their finances. The judges are just waiving the fees. So that money is not coming back to the county. It's actually coming from us. And we're having to pay monitoring fees, drug testing fees, all of these fees that should be paid by an offender is being paid by the taxpayer. So I'm having to pay for my offender to have a lawyer. I'm having to pay for his monitoring fees. I'm having to pay for his drug testing. All of that is coming from us, and we're the victims. And this is not right. We should not then also have to take the burden of this offender who didn't even have to pay to get out of jail most of the time. And if they are, it's on a very low amount to where the community is not safe. And then we have these like AJ, they can't even tell you where they are, where the ankle monitor is, where this person is. It's just, oh, the battery died, so we haven't heard from them in 3 days. Well, where are they?
Yep.
They don't even tell law enforcement where they are. And half the times they're not even tracking. Half the times they don't even report that someone has left or that their battery is dead or that they're outside of curfew hours. That a lot of these things don't get reported back.
And even if it does get reported back, most of the time nothing happens, especially for curfew violations and those sort of things. You can be out on bond and violate. They'll call you in front of the judge and then that's it. They're like, oh, don't do it again. Slap on the hand and go back to what you were doing.
Historically, prior to 6-7 years ago, when you were out on probation or you were out on pretrial and you were to violate your terms of probation or violate your pretrial release conditions, you are put back in jail. That was your opportunity to be in the free world while you prepare for trial, or to be in the free world instead of being in prison, as long as you follow your conditions. And if you don't follow your conditions and you violate, you have to serve your time or you go back to jail. And what we're seeing is every single time the prosecutors are asking for probation to be revoked or for pretrial conditions have been violated and they need to be revoked and put back in jail. And these judges are just like, no, we're just going to reinstate it instead of revoking it. Or in the case of probation, we're just going to terminate probation as unsatisfactory. Have a good day. That person never had to spend those 2 years in jail that they were supposed to get while out on probation. They're still in the free world with just an unsatisfactory disposition. What does that mean? Nothing. It means that they can then later commit another crime. And if they ask for probation, the judge can say, well, you had it before and you didn't really follow it. But nothing happens. They got away with 2 years in the free world as a criminal, convicted, and never had to do jail time.
Yeah, and that's
why
one of the things. It makes me so upset because, like, I think about 20 years ago how the system was, and I'm not perfect. I've been in trouble myself. It's not like I'm not familiar with the system as somebody being in the system
From
as
that
doing
side, yeah,
something
same.
wrong. I'm not perfect. So when Michelle and I want harsher punishment, it's not because we hate criminals or we hate people that are messing up and doing things. We don't want people that are habitual violent criminals back out on the street with no accountability. When I got arrested when I was 20 for driving on a suspended license, my bond was $5,000. And that people get that for violent offenses.
Violent. We saw one recently I told you about. It was aggravated sexual assault of a child, and the bond amount is $1,500.
Yep,
So that offender gets out of jail for $150 after he traumatized a child for the rest of this child's life, and $150.
And yeah, Michelle and I, we believe in due process, innocent, until proven guilty. But when it comes to certain crimes, the bonds need to be higher because of the type of crime that it is. And it's not because we
And the
want
risk.
somebody.
Have they offended
Right.
before? Are they habitual? Are they violent? Are they showing mental illness? Like, all of those things are a part of your risk assessment. And what's happening now is the risk assessment tool they're using is not, well, you can't predict the future, but you can predict off of their past, right? And they don't have all this information while they're doing their risk assessment, and they're just doing whatever they feel is fair when they're feeling sorry for poor people. And that's always my most hated argument when it comes to bail reform is we cannot have people in jail just because they're poor. Well, their victims are also poor.
Mm-hmm.
When you're releasing these poor offenders back into the community, they don't live in River Oaks. They live in poor communities as well. And so you're releasing them back into the poor community to victimize more poor people. Oh, we don't want to have Black and brown people in the jail. Well, Black and brown people are the majority of the victims as well. Violent crime is a crime of opportunity, and it's not being done by rich people. It's being done by other poor people against other poor people. And so their argument, I don't know why we're talking about wealth and oh, they can't afford to get out. Well, I couldn't afford to be at the hospital. I couldn't afford therapy. I couldn't afford all of those things. I could parking, going to court, having to testify.
$20 a day. $20 a day. If you are a victim and you have to go to court and you have to pay for parking, it is $20 a day. Do you get that money back? Nope. Does the county give you that money back as a part of being a victim? Your victim care package? Nope.
Do you have an advocate with you most
Nope.
of the time? No.
Nope.
And so I walked into that courtroom and it was just myself, my beautiful little ADA, and that was the only people on the left side of the room. Over here, they had 3 attorneys, 4 paralegals, their preacher, principal, parents, family. Everybody was brought in and transported to the court wearing new clothes. They had daycare provided for them. They didn't have to pay to park. All of this. And I'm sitting there, just me and Miss Platt all by ourselves, just there's no coaching, there's no help, and I'd asked, it's like, well, do we have an attorney that represents us? No, you'd have to hire a private attorney.
Mm-hmm.
Your ADA, while they are fighting for you they work for the state. So they're looking for the justice of the state to get justice for the victim, but they don't represent you. So you're in there alone.
Yep.
And that's a big miss when it comes to victims. It's we're already putting out all this money to have to go to court, pay for therapy, all this other kind of things, and they don't have to pay a single thing, including their fees. And so when you end up getting these vouchers for therapy as far as the crime victims compensation, good luck finding a therapist that takes a voucher from the county, because it takes too long for that voucher to be paid. And they just don't take them anymore. And then the ones that do suck.
You're
So what
absolutely
therapy are you
correct.
getting?
You are absolutely correct. I spoke to a victim advocate that works in one of the smaller Harris County suburbs, and she had a child that was a victim of sexual assault and was having trouble finding a therapist for this poor little girl that would take the voucher. And the victims compensation fund in general, the process is a mess and it's so hard to get approved. And if 4 different people call, y'all are going to get different answers. I assure you, it's such a mess. People assume when you're a victim of a crime, there's things handed to you, you're given things, and like nobody has done a damn thing for me ever. I had to move. I moved immediately because Austin was murdered where we lived. I certainly wasn't going to live there. Did anybody offer to help me get a new place or pay for the rent or pay for the time off work that I had to take, the therapy? And not only that, when you're a victim of, not only homicide, if you're a victim of assault or sexual assault, and you unfortunately know what it's like to be robbed at gunpoint more than once, and the trauma of having a gun in your face, it impacts your mental health. Your mental health also impacts your physical health. And nobody's paying.
And everybody around you.
Yep. Nobody's
I
paying.
should never have had to teach my child at 4 years old, you cannot jump on mommy's back. That freaks me out, right? Like he's 4. Or understanding when we go out to eat, I have to face the door. I can't have the door behind me. I have to see who's coming in at all times. I don't go to the rodeo. I don't go to concerts. I can't go to places with a large group of people. I can't see your hands. I'm not coming. It was never like that before. And so now my child, if he wants to go to something that has a lot of people, go with daddy, because I can't. And that's terrible that I cannot mentally handle situations where I feel like I might become a victim again, because I just went to work and became a victim. And so imagine I put myself, go to the rodeo. Am I going to be a victim? Then I'm going to feel the fault of, oh, well, I went. That's not fair. And then I can't do things with my family like we used to do, or where I want to do, because it just, I will spend the next week in bed crying from the anxiety. These things are never, you don't get that. My offenders were given 5 years probation deferred, meaning if they get off their probation successfully, they do not have a criminal record. And at 25 years old, get to start over. And after 5 years of that, I didn't start over anything. It got worse. I didn't get to just start over brand new. Not only that, this entire time I'm trying to recover from these traumas. They're out here too. And so every time I turn around, I'm like, oh, is that him? Oh, is that him? Is that, anytime. It's just a concept, because they're out here in this community with us. And then they're going to not have a criminal record, or they're going to go to a trade school instead of having to do probation. All of these things. Well, we don't want them to reoffend. Well, guess what? They did multiple times. And Frank Aguilar kept putting them right back on probation.
Oh God. Yeah. Frank
over and over.
Frank Aguilar is one of the judges that was a big problem. Judge Josh Hill, we just saw in the other video, Judge Hillary Unger, and it's definitely not, it's not all judges. Judge, I can't remember his name, Judge David Fleischer or Fleischman. He, I think, is a misdemeanor court judge. But he's fantastic. I wish he was a felony court judge, because he's fair and he sees things for what they are, and he berates people when they break what they're supposed to do.
And he mentors them as well.
Yes. That's what a judge should do. It should be a little bit of both. You can't keep giving people a break over and over and over again. Because if we're gonna, so for instance, let's talk about the deputy Fernando that was murdered. The person that is out on bond right now was not the shooter, but he does have the same charge as the shooter. They're both charged with capital murder. Now, this is a person that had previous interactions with the justice system, and also, if I remember correctly, he finished probation unsatisfactory, or is this someone
Yeah,
else?
he didn't finish.
He didn't finish. Oh, he was
finished.
just
He was
discharged unsatisfactory.
discharged unsatisfactory. He was given 2 years probation on a previous case. It was a drug case. It was a felony drug case. He was on 2 years probation for that sentence and didn't do any of his conditions. And so even after asking to revoke his probation multiple times, Judge Unger just terminated him unsatisfactory. So he didn't do jail time. Now, had he had his probation revoked and he had been put back in jail for the remainder of his probation, he would not have been involved in Fernando's crime. He still would have been in jail. And there's a chance that this deputy might not have died.
And the other part is he wouldn't be in this situation, because keeping people accountable isn't just about victims. If you don't want people to reoffend, they need to be held accountable. It's like spoiling a child and allowing them to get away with things over and over. Had he been in jail, he never would have gotten a capital murder charge. And capital murder, he could potentially get the death penalty. And, or at the very least, he will get life without parole. He's not ever going to leave prison ever again. So it's not just about victims. It's also about trying to save these people's lives so they can see what they've done wrong. Because I'll tell you something, when I went to jail, that was not a place that I wanted to go back to ever again. That was not something that
And that's how it used to be. You went to jail and it was like, I don't ever want to come here again. That's not the case in Harris County. In Harris County, the inmates run the system. The criminals run the system. You walk into court, like I said last week, I go to court in Montgomery County with someone and I'm sitting there and they're like, spit that gum out, tuck your shirt in, look, brush your hair. I mean, they're just how it used to be when you had your decorum in the courtroom. You go into Harris County, they got a bonnet on, their flip-flops, shirts are untucked, smacking on gum, talking, laughing. We saw what's his name's wife over there on the floor being dramatic, praying. And it was just like, come on, you don't act that way in a courtroom, but that's what it's become. There's no fear of the criminal justice system in Harris County anymore. They do not fear getting arrested. They don't fear going to jail. They don't fear ever having to have a sentence because it's not happening. We have created the bratty mentality for criminals where they're just spoiled and they're getting their way. There's no consequences. Now, you talk about Sean's ideas of, I don't want to have terms of probation. I don't want to have all these pretrial conditions. These people deserve to get a job and be able to find housing. And yeah, okay, you rehabilitate after they have been convicted. You don't rehabilitate them instead of punishment. You still have to, and I've how many inmates I've interviewed in prisons here in Texas that all say the same thing. We never would have gotten help. We never would have gone to rehab. We never would have taken anger management. I never would have gone to school and gotten a degree if I didn't come to prison. I needed to learn and take my sentence, repay my debt to society, and rehabilitate here. If I had not rehabilitated in this prison, I would be out there. I probably would have killed somebody else or myself. The only way I was able to get help was through the prison system. And that's what you do. You need to try to get people before they commit crime or rehabilitate them while they're serving a sentence, not in place of.
Right.
There has to be accountability.
Yeah, absolutely. Because it's different if you're like a kid that stole something, but when it comes to violent crimes,
felonies,
like we can't have that. Like, I'm sorry that there needs
felonies
to
are
be
being
accountability.
treated like misdemeanors.
Yes.
We talked to how many officers up here up north, right? And it's so embarrassing. You're on I-45 North and there's a billboard bigger than the church that says you are now entering Montgomery County and we prosecute.
Mm-hmm.
How embarrassing that they control Harris County. They troll us.
Yeah.
Like, don't come here because we're going to prosecute. You better stay in Harris County if you want to do it. And they'll ask them when they get arrested, am I in Harris County or I am Montgomery County? And as soon as you tell them, oh, you're a Moco. Oh, no. They know they're going to jail. As soon as you say, no, it's still Harris County. Oh, okay, cool. Because they're going to be home by dinner.
Yeah, they know that they're going to get right out in Harris County.
And we're talking about a difference of 15 feet between our counties. And from one county line to the next, you go to jail or you don't.
Yeah, and a lot of that has to do with the judges. The judges are the ones that are making the decisions. They're the ones that have to do with what's happening there. But when it comes
in the state of Texas, the judges are the only ones that set the bail amount. The district attorney's office can offer a recommendation, or we are asking for this much, and it is the discretion of the judge in the state of Texas. The judge is the only one that sets the bail amount.
Yeah, and
so blaming the district attorney and blaming everybody else, Hunty, no, you are the one in charge of setting the bail amount. And we see it all the time. The state is requesting $100,000 bond because of there's all these convictions. There's this violent history. And then you see bond set by the judge, $2,500.
Right. Yeah, when it comes to the bond and bail, that's the judges. When it comes to completely getting rid of a charge or not prosecuting or not filing in time or the indictments, that is on the district attorney's office. So there's a separation between them. So like Travis County is dealing with a district attorney who's not doing what they're supposed to do. Harris County, it's not like Garza has
far behind.
Garza has years that this has been going on. Sean Teare has just started as district attorney. It's been 60 days, not even, and there's already been some issues. So we're definitely keeping a close eye of what's happening in Harris County. I'm gonna play a quick video about the kid that was just released on bond for the deputy's murder, and then we're gonna discuss about bond in Texas, because there are some misconceptions with bond and whether they can completely not give a bond or all of that. There are some misconceptions when it comes to bond in Texas, and there's a reason why we're trying to get laws passed to change that. Letty, I see you in the chat. Hi, Letty. I love you, Letty. Letty from POMC. I'm pretty sure you met her, Michelle. But anyway, all right, let me play this video, add this in here, because that's why we need help. We need help getting some of these laws passed so that these things can change, because some judges, they're tied between some constitutional rights. Each state has different constitutional rights. But we just need to make sure that we all fully understand what is happening in the system so we can be upset at the right things and then get the things changed that need to be changed. Because we can yell all we want and argue back and forth, but these things have to be changed in order for anything to change.
Deputy Fernando Esqueda was shot and killed last summer. 2 men have been charged. 1 walked out of jail today, and tomorrow the same judge could give the other defendant the same opportunity. Tonight, Esqueda's family among the critics, saying it's unfair and that the judge made a bad decision.
We were absolutely shocked and disappointed.
Houston area law enforcement organizations outraged that Draymond Francis was released Wednesday from the Harris County Jail.
I've never seen anyone that is on a capital murder case of a law enforcement official be released on a bond.
The 27-year-old charged with capital murder of a police officer for the shooting death of Harris County Deputy Fernando Esqueda last July. In November, Hillary Unger of the 248th District Court, seen here in a campaign photo, granted Francis bond, a total of $1 million for capital murder and tampering with evidence. This week, he posted it.
I think at this point, we're kind of crossing the line.
And it didn't take long for the Harris County Deputies Organization to make it be known what they thought.
This decision is not only a slap in the face to Deputy Esqueda's family, but it also undermines the safety of our community and the law enforcement officers who risk their lives every day.
Capital murder is the only crime in Texas for which a judge can deny bond. When the murder is that of a police officer, it's practically a given. ABC 13 could find no other defendant in Harris County facing the same charge ever granted bond.
What happens when this guy doesn't come back to court? It's a capital murder case. It's the worst of the worst. Now, if he doesn't show up to court, then officers have to go looking for him to bring him back. What's going to happen then? You going to fire up on those officers?
According to his bond conditions, Francis is under house arrest and required to wear a GPS monitor. In response to the criticism, Judge Unger's court would only refer us to what's been filed.
It's ridiculous. Judge Unger should be ashamed of herself.
Francis and a co-defendant, Ronald Palmer, are accused of firing dozens of rounds at Deputy Escada as he sat in his truck near Palmer's location. Palmer was wanted for pistol whipping a Little Caesars employee. His bond has been denied so far, but tomorrow he has a hearing.
We are very concerned that tomorrow we might have a similar outcome to what we had today. And what I want to be very clear is that the decisions that these judges are making affects and impacts people's lives.
Jessica Willie, ABC 13 Eyewitness News.
Yes, it definitely impacts people's lives. So you heard what the reporter said. Capital murder is the only charge in Texas that a judge can deny bond. So when it comes to, I hate even say like normal murder charges, regular murder charges, they have to give bond. You know, I see people get really upset when they're like, how did they let this murderer out? Legally, there has to be a bond given. However, it is up to the judge with the amount. But when it comes to capital murder, they have a couple other options. And I do believe this guy was given, the other person, Palmer, was given, what, a $3 million bond? Yeah, he was given a $3 million bond.
After she did this, and all of these organizations showed up. And they went to his bond hearing and they sat there. So now she's having to face all of law enforcement and they're watching for her decision. So public outrage definitely mattered in her decision and having everybody show up. But we shouldn't have to all show up for a judge to do their job. It should just be a given. It should just be expected that this is the system that is here to protect not only the community, but the offender's rights as well. But you have to weigh the risk. And these risks are not being weighed. And these judges are given far too much discretion with what they can do for bail amounts. And then we have judges like Unger and what's the other one that got removed? You know who I'm talking about? He started O'Donnell. Who said that he was going to dismantle the court system from the inside.
Yeah, he's the one that I always confused with Aguilar. He has a very similar name. But there we go. Yeah, Frank. Yeah.
Yeah. So he made this statement, I'm going to dismantle the court system from the inside, became a judge, and that's exactly what he tried to do. And when he was removed, he then continues. He goes into commissioner's court and continues to try to push the bail reform issue and how we have to have this consent decree in Harris County because prisons are bad. For who? He's never been a victim.
Because it's never, when it comes to the criminal justice system, it's not black and white. Are there, I don't think that people should be, treated certain ways in some prisons. I think that, prisoners should get better quality food, should have, other things that they can do. But at some point, who matters more? We can't trample the rights of innocent people that have done absolutely nothing wrong in favor of these criminals. And Letty also so Letty and I have gone to court quite a few times, and she is an example, Judge Gray, and Letty's son was murdered a few years ago. and she has still not gone to trial. This judge the judge allows the defense to keep throwing stuff in and allowing it to continue. It has been years, and her and her family have to pay the $20 every time they go to
And
court.
then you get down there, and as you walk in, it's like, oh, we're going to reset.
And they go there, nothing happens. And and you can't tell a family not to show up when there's a court date. Like, if something happened to your loved one, you would want to be there too, regardless of what you're telling me. What if something else does happen? I want to know. Families should not have to pay $20 to go to court every single time and never get that money back. I mean, she's been dozens of times at this point, over a dozen times, probably dozens at this point, and her family has had to pay every time. And
can I show a slide or my screen real quick?
If you can, if it lets you. I don't know if it does. Does it?
Lets me share my screen.
There.
Yeah. Okay. We want to look at this one.
And one thing that Michelle has, man, anything that she says, she has proof. This woman has receipts on receipts on receipts and receipts, and it's all public record. She combs through that stuff. She has so much data. If I want to know something, I go to Michelle, because I don't know how she gets all the stuff. And if I need to know something, I check with her, because I'm not going to do all the work when she's already done it. But this woman stacks on all the things that she's saying. We can back this up.
Here we go. This is what I want to look at. So here we have, as of February, this is the age of the caseloads in our courts. So look at this. This is right here, Judge Josh Hill.
Oh yeah, Josh Hill is another one.
Look at how many cases he has in his docket. You've got well over 1,500, and of these, he's got 1,100 people out on bond, and then he has these that are in jail. So look at these backlogs. Now you look at how long these people have been in jail. We're talking, these are happening well over 365 days just on what we have pending. So it is quite a long time that people are waiting just to go to court. And this is how long victims have to wait to get justice, right? So we're looking at a backlog that's just ridiculous. Now I can't find my screen again. Where'd I go? I lost us.
Find me.
Oh, there we are. I found you. There we are. So you can see we have a problem with our backlog, of course, and it's been compounded by funding, COVID, Harvey, like all of these things. But our population has exploded, and we don't have enough courts to keep up with all of this. We don't have enough judges to do this, and the judges we have are not holding trials in a timely manner. And so people are being let out of jail because they can't get a speedy trial. And then they never had to face the consequences. And you can see the issues with the backlog in the court. So you can see what judges are not doing anything. It's very obvious. This data is tracked monthly on what their caseloads are. And anybody that can look at those caseloads and say that Harris County does not need funding for more criminal courts, yes, we do.
Yeah, no,
and
we absolutely.
Then
we need
they,
more
we don't
courts.
have the money for it. But then you start tracking, right? So if you look at your PR bonds and your GOB bonds, so they give you a bond that you don't have to pay anything to get out of jail. You're swearing your pinky promise, I'm going to go to court. And if I don't go to court, and then I have to pay the amount on that bond. Harris County is not collecting that money. If you look at, we have well over $100 million outstanding in PR and GOB bonds that are not being forfeited and collected from these people. $100 million goes a long way in the county. So don't sit here and tell me we don't have the budget to add another court. Well, we need $60 million to add one court. Well, I know where I can find 100 real quick, but you're not. And so where they are making money is they're filing forfeitures on surety bonds, but they're not filing forfeitures on PR and GOB bonds. And when I pull up all of our active fugitives right now, and there's 178 pages of fugitives from justice that have not returned to court on PR and GOB bonds, and we have 7 pages of fugitives that are out on surety bonds. There is a big difference in our fugitive population. The ones that are being babysat by bail bondsmen, and they're bounty hunters, and they're being brought back to court. That's a responsible way to have somebody. You've got somebody watching you. Then we have Harris County's letting everybody out on PR bonds and GOB bonds that they don't have a babysitter. They're not even following their conditions of pretrial, and they're not coming back to court. And if you are going to go to jail and there's a chance that you're going to have a prison term for 5 to 10 years, you're not going to court. And nobody's going to come look for you, because Harris County sheriffs and HPD are not bounty hunters. They already have enough to do. They're not out there chasing people down on warrants because they didn't go to court. The only time you get caught is if you get another charge. You are caught committing a crime again is the only time you go back to court to find out that you had a warrant. And then the judge just gives you another PR bond. And another, and another, and another. And how many second chances do you get when you get 13 PR bonds? That's 13 second chances.
Yeah. And
What
then if
limit
you
is there to be,
and then if you go and commit another crime, it's
another
fun,
one.
you know, you get more bonds. There's people out on 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 bonds. And
think about it. We are a very large populace, and we are very understaffed in police officers. So if you have contact with a cop 15 times in 1 year, you've been arrested. What are the odds that you have committed that much crime? You've only been caught 15 times, but what did you get away with? Because if you've come into contact that many times with our understaffed police department, you're committing a lot of crime.
Do you know how many times I've been pulled over in Harris County?
I've never been pulled over in Harris County.
0. My registration sticker was expired for 4 years. They had every reason to interact with me and pull me over. They don't got time for that. They have 0 time. They have hardly enough time to
respond to violent
to the
crimes.
calls. And the Travis County and Harris County has very similar issues with that. They barely have enough police to function, even when
Well, they
calling
defunded
911.
the police department in Austin. And when I lived there, you know, Art Acevedo was our police chief, and he did a lot of good work in Austin. But we were well staffed, and we had Texas Highway Patrol that helped with traffic initiatives when we were in Austin, and this was back in the 2000s. And then the social interest groups started taking over the entire system in Travis County, and they have a very liberal mayor, and they have very liberal city council, and they have defunded their police department. And then they wonder why nobody shows up when you call 911. Who's going to come? Right. And who wants to be a police officer in Travis County when José Garza's #1 target are police officers? Those are the people that he wants to put in jail, are the cops, not the criminals.
Absolutely. When they had I saw a video of like a street takeover in Austin, and it was like a bunch of them, and all these people are trying to call and get cops, and like nobody showed up to do anything about it. But so many people were calling 911 at the same time. It clogged the 911 system because they're understaffed there too. People couldn't get through to 911 for 30 to 40 minutes. And somebody was calling, I believe, because their dad had a heart attack or something and needed an ambulance and couldn't get through. One of the most terrifying things to happen, and I had it happen when I lived in Harris County. You call 911 and you get put on hold.
Literally.
You call 911 and you get put on hold. 911 is an emergency service. I called 911, I don't know, 9 times living in Harris County. A couple times for domestic violence, because if I see something, I call the cops, or if I hear something, because I can't hear something happen like that and not do anything. Twice I called for an overdose. But when I had a guy in front of my apartment building, he was in between the 2 buildings, and he was intoxicated, like acting like a complete and utter asshole. And he had a Charger or Challenger, can't remember which one of those. and had the kind of speakers I wish that I had in my 20s. And
Right.
it was like 1, 2 o'clock in the morning, and this was a weekday. He had that shit turned all the way up. It was shaking my windows and shaking the building across for me. And he's trying to fight anybody that's coming into the complex. And he's gesturing like he has a gun, but I don't see a gun. So I'm not going to tell 911 that he has one. But I'm like, he's trying to fight people. It took 4.5 hours for the police to show up with multiple of us calling 911. And when the police got there, they were like, oh, we were dealing with a drunk driver. I'm like, hey, I'm not upset at you. I'm upset that it took this long, but not at you. It's not your fault directly. And by the time they got there, the guy had just went inside. And then because he didn't do anything to me directly, they were like, well, he didn't do anything to you. So we're just, not going to do anything. But they couldn't
Or
because they didn't
last
know what
week,
building it went into.
yeah. And then the other issue too with us being so large and we have multiple departments, right? So like last week, I'm calling to report felony child abuse and neglect, and I get, oh, that's precinct 4. Oh no, that's Fort Bend County. Oh, actually, that's Harris County. Oh, nope, it's HPD. Spent an hour and 40 minutes on the phone just even trying to figure out who could go out. And had it not been felony child, like if I was trying to call because my car got broken into, at this point, I give up. I'm going to take the loss, pay $250, fix my window, and go about my business, because an hour and 40 minutes just to try to figure out what department can show up for an emergency, nobody's going to do that. And then they want to say, well, look at our crime statistics. Yeah, look at your crime statistics. People aren't reporting crime. I've got my neighbor here who's a veteran who walked out and he's got no wheels on his car.
Mm-hmm.
And that's he's only going to call so many times where he's like, you know what, I'm just going to call Allstate, get my wheels, fixed. And it is what it is.
Yes. And right now, one of the things they're praising that crime is down in Harris County. But
property crime is down.
Prove it.
Because you can't report it.
You
can't report it.
No, you can't. You remember a couple years ago when I went out to my car and the whole thing of it was sideswiped, and we had assigned parking, and it was my neighbor that did it, and she had the same damage on her car, and one of my other neighbors heard it. It took hours for the police to come out, but then they wouldn't go interact with my neighbor. They wouldn't go knock. So there's no report of that happening. And how many people had their catalytic converters stolen and didn't even bother with the police report? They just filed it through their insurance. There was a news interview that I did a couple years ago with Fox 26 talking about crime. And I said, if the cops are going to take 5, 6, 7, 8 hours, are you going to bother calling the police? Are you going to bother? And if nothing is going to happen, are you going to bother? It's a waste of your time. You physically have to go down to the station, or some have the ability to do it online. There's no point in doing it because nothing is going to happen, because they're focusing on more severe crime. They kind of have to. That is going to take priority. The property crimes aren't going to
There's
get
no
reported.
priority for property crime. And so they're going to say, well, look, property crime is down.
Yeah, nobody's
Well,
reporting
violent
it.
crime is up, but you're not going to report. I saw this little old man at the gas station get beat up by a bunch of juveniles because he refused to buy them cigarettes and beer. And I caught it all on my dash cam because I'm getting gas and I'm facing the front of this store, and these kids beat this dude up. He was an older dude, Latino.
Mm-hmm.
And I go over there. I'm armed, right? So I immediately jump in. It's just me. There's all these other people at the gas station, but I'm armed. I show up. Hey, kids, what the kids take off running. They run to the apartments behind the gas station. And I told the guy, I've got it all on video. I'm going to go over to that property and show it to the property manager. We're going to find out who these kids are. And I'm calling the cops. And he just freaked out. No. I don't want to get the cops involved because I'm not a citizen. that's why you're victimized, because they know you're not going to call the cops, and that you are victimizing our most vulnerable communities. And you don't have to be a citizen to report a crime, but they don't teach you these things, right? They think if they report a crime, they're going to get deported. Now, I mean, maybe nowadays, but you get a U visa. If you're a victim of a crime, you get to stay here legally because you have to be able to go to court. But he was so scared to call the cops, and he's 60 something years old, and he's beat to a pulp by a bunch of 13 and 14-year-old kids, and he won't report a crime. That's a violent crime, but he didn't want to report it. So then we have it. This cycle continues of violent crime not being reported. Property crimes are not going to be reported. And then we have what HPD did and said, we don't have enough staff to investigate these crimes, so we're just going to suspend the investigations. And we have 250,000 cases that have been reported that were then suspended and never ever investigated. We had victims die that never had their cases, worked on. And the DNA, there's a hit in the system, but now they can't prosecute because your complaining witness passed away.
Yep. Yeah. So for those of you that have no idea what we're talking about, Houston Police Department had a scandal that came out a year ago or so. There was 250,000 crimes that were reported. So these were, the exact number was 264,000 reports of crime that happened over years that were just filed in a system that I don't remember what the code was. It was like
lack of personnel.
Lack of personnel. That's what it was. Lack of personnel, that they couldn't do anything
They didn't have
about it.
investigators to investigate those cases. And so they said, well, typically, if we didn't have definitive evidence, we don't have a name, we don't have video, we don't have any of this, we don't have anybody to go out and investigate it because we don't have all the evidence right up front. We're just going to suspend that one for later. But then later never came. And then there were ones in there that they had all the suspect information. We have rape kits, we have a picture, we have an address, we have video, we have documentation, and they still were not investigated due to lack of personnel for being so short-staffed in HPD. And so 264,000 people never got their justice. And so now we're going from case reports that were back starting in 2018, 2017 and up, that never even had an investigator. Now they're like, oh crap, let's go ahead and reassign this to people. And then the witnesses have disappeared. People have died. The other people are already in jail. Like it's just, and then so all of these cases, they never got their day in court. And now they're trying to run from behind 6 years later. And now you want to investigate? Now you want to try to put somebody in jail? No.
Well, and it's, don't tell me crime is down and celebrating these numbers when we have a history of hiding these numbers, a history of police not showing up or taking so long to show up that nothing happens. Those times that I called for domestic violence because I heard my neighbor getting her ass beat and like thrown against the wall and all sorts of shit. So one time I called, and this is different neighbors. I don't know why I kept attracting these kinds of neighbors, but my neighbors, one time I called and she was screaming, saying she was hurt. And I'm like, oh my God, I have to call. And the ambulance got there before the police did. And of course, because the ambulance can get there quicker, and then he got away. So nothing happened with that. The other time that I called, I heard that there was a gun involved. She said he had a gun to her head. Like, I'm hearing this through the walls. So of course I'm calling 911, and the ambulance shows up first, and they're banging on the door. And then they call me because I'm the person that called. They're like, hey, we just want to make sure this is the right property. And then I found out the police were never dispatched. The ambulance, the EMTs found a bullet casing outside the apartment. And then I saw HPD drive by hours later and they cleared it. They said, oh, then when I reported it to HPD, they tried to tell me that police cleared the scene first before EMTs got there. Like, sir, I was there. You all called me to find the place. Like, that's not what happened. And then another time, I called. This was a different apartment. They were so loud they were across from me. And I called 911. I said, there are children, there's children there. I was so worried. I had cameras this time. Nobody ever showed up. And I reported it. It was this whole internal investigation and all this stuff. And I was very clear when I called 911. I said, the police can call me if they can't find the apartment. Call me back. I want to make sure something happens. I'm scared for these kids because sometimes I know that it's tough to find my apartment. And nobody ever showed up. So I reported it. There was an internal investigation. They found out that somebody was dispatched 7 hours after I called. But I don't know what, apparently he couldn't find the apartment or he went to the wrong apartment. I don't know. They discharged it saying nothing wrong happened. So another time I call 911, different neighbors, downstairs neighbors. And I actually called CPS on these neighbors too. Police came and they came quickly for once. And the guy told the police that she left and he wasn't answering the door. And the police tried for like 20-30 minutes to get him to answer the door. I went downstairs and talked to them because some people are scared. I'm like, no, I'm not, I'm gonna be involved. Like, I don't care. So I went to talk to the cops. I'm like, hey, they're like, well, he said she left. I was like, her car is out there. Her car is out there. And I heard her in the apartment. I can hear her. She is in that apartment still. They never got in the apartment and they left. So by my own personal experience, how many things have happened that didn't get reported, even though I called? Let's pull the 911 calls. Let's see how many people have called for things that nothing ever happened. One of my neighbors came to me. I'm so glad I got out of this complex. And I lived in a nice area too. I lived in a rich area. So it's not even like it has to do with the area that you live in. This shit can happen anywhere. So
It's
another
just, it
neighbor
was in the city. You're in
Yeah.
city.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Another neighbor
That's why
came
I
to
won't
me.
leave precinct 4.
Yeah. Another neighbor came to me because she knew that I worked in mental health and with veterans. And her husband had a mental health break and thought she was a demon and tried to attack her. Called 911, tried to get the mental health portion squad to come. Hours later, nobody had still come. So she called them back and told them not to bother. And I'm not being critical of the law enforcement. I'm being critical of the system that we have for such a large city, because when I broke down my patrol area only had 5 police officers in that area, and it overlapped with Westheimer. And if you're familiar with Houston, Westheimer is a very busy area for law enforcement. So if you live in an area that is busy, even if you have more police, the chances of them having the time to come for lower level stuff is slim. So we're at Harris County and Travis County. You unfortunately have to be prepared to have the police not come when you call 911. You have to be, and then not only be prepared for that, let's say the cops come in time and they're prosecuted. Are they actually going to be prosecuted? Are the charges actually going to stick?
Are we going to have these judges and magistrates like we do here that just dismiss for no probable cause? We have cases that are on video that a judge will dismiss as no probable cause found. Huh? It's on video.
Mm-hmm.
That's not enough probable cause to show somebody committing a crime when their face is clear and you got caught in 4K.
Right.
But they just don't want to add to their backlog. And then they also use it as a way to be petty towards certain departments. And so they have a habit of doing that with my precinct. Precinct 4 is it's the largest precinct we have, and it covers a lot of it unincorporated Harris County. And they do a ton of traffic initiatives. And do you know why they do a ton of traffic initiatives? It's not just to keep the streets safe. That's how they're finding all of these people that have multiple warrants. It's every day. We pulled over this car for running a red light, and the driver turned out to have 7 warrants out of Harris County for misdemeanor and felonies. And this is the only way they're getting caught. And so they've made a habit of patrolling these high crime areas, and even finding something as minor as a traffic mistake, no turn signal, run around, whatever. It's enough to find out who you are. And that's the only way that we can keep our areas safer. But then they get to court and the judge will just kick it for no PC. And then Mark Herman's office has to then use their resources to go and refile those before they finally get a charge to stick. That was the same evidence they had the last time.
Right.
They have to then turn around and just take it before a grand jury. Instead of letting them go to a hearing judge, they'll then just present it to a grand jury, get the indictment, and use more resources, because now they got to go find the guy and pick him back up and bring him back to jail. So the amount of man hours that have been wasted just with Precinct 4 alone is expensive to our pocketbooks.
Yeah. And the
so
same thing.
We've got judges just, no, there's no PC. No PC. Yeah. It's fine.
And that's what also happening in Travis County. So there is this Twitter account, Austin Justice. The username is Justice Tracking. I'm going to pull up their account real quick. So they do a really good job of breaking down the things that are happening in Austin. Like this, for instance, family violence, 5 days in jail. You know, and then it's very common for Garza to just drop charges. And, you know, word has gotten out, auto theft is not prosecuted. Like, look at the jump in auto crime in Travis County.
Increase in property crime because it's not going to get prosecuted.
Yeah.
Now we have we have a lot of similarities between Harris and Travis County, but what is happening in Travis County is compounded by the fact that they've defunded the police department, and so there's not enough officers to patrol these streets, and crime has become increasingly more violent because there's no consequences to these crimes, or you have the district attorney who is on purpose, just like Bynum was doing, trying to undo the criminal justice system behind the scenes from inside the system. So both Bexar County and Travis County DA's office were infiltrated by these special interest groups, and I will name them. The Wren Collective, which is run by civil rights attorneys that went in there and they're trying to dictate bail policy to district attorney's office. These are not elected officials that get to decide what our bail policies are or what kind of probable cause hearing policies you want to have. They have infiltrated the offices and they're sitting in meetings and they're writing bail policies for district attorneys, and they're calling themselves their civil rights attorneys. And they're getting them to say, well, people can't go to jail. They can't have bail because that's oppressive. And so they've turned these people, they want to be these social justice warriors. Then you have people like Lena Hidalgo and José Garza, who have both done as much as they can to make our communities unsafe, and then turn around and said, I'm scared for my life. I need private security.
Yeah. And they both have private security. And, you know, one of the
paid
incidents
for
with Garza, there was a 2020 murder. This man stabbed another person to death, which is a horrible, violent crime, and, you know, stabbed the man to death. And then he was caught with meth in 2024 and the charge was dismissed. So he's out after stabbing somebody in 2022 and still doesn't have an indictment from 2022. And that's what the family of that victim is having to deal with. And it's like, imagine somebody you love is violently murdered, and that person just gets to walk the streets and do whatever. It doesn't even have an indictment because of the district attorney.
Yeah, they like to let the neighborhoods figure it out on their own. It shouldn't be up to us to have to. I mean, we're damn near martial law already, man. We have to protect ourselves, and that's not what we're supposed to do. We shouldn't be out here having to protect ourselves. We rely on law enforcement and the criminal justice system to keep us safe, and unfortunately, that's not happening. And it's going to be a problem. And we've seen it here in Harris County where people are having to take things into their own hands and defend. We got this guy at the taqueria that ended up having to shoot an armed robber. And then they wanted to, we're going to send him to jail. I'm sorry? You had an armed robber in there holding an entire restaurant up at gunpoint. I'm sorry he got shot, but probably don't pull a gun on 9 people in
Yeah.
Texas.
Yeah, his family came out and was
Oh, he's
he
a good
didn't have to
boy.
do that. And I'm sorry that they lost somebody that they love, but your loved one was putting other people in danger with
And had just
a
gotten out of
gun.
prison.
Yeah, just gotten out of prison, clearly isn't trying to do any better. Uh, and how many people have been murdered in Harris County that it was in the progress of a robbery? How
Mhm.
many people? A lot. It's a lot. A lot of the homicides that we have in Harris County are robberies, quote unquote, gone bad. They're stranger homicides. These aren't crimes of passion. These aren't, even though Harris County is number one in Texas for domestic partner homicides, the majority that we are seeing, especially in the news, they don't know each other. They're robberies or juggings or roadway shootings, and a lot of those people are out on multiple bonds already or are on probation. So it's like 100 and I don't remember what the number is now.
172, I think,
Yeah,
173.
172 people
It's
have
too
been.
much that we can't even remember. I
It's
would
100.
remember like 7.
Right. 172 people have been murdered in Harris County by repeat violent offenders that are currently out on multiple bonds. 172 people's lives could have been saved had the criminals been held accountable to begin with and could remain in jail or prison or, doing something else that they should have been rather than committing these crimes. It's too many people. I'm tired of meeting people that this has happened to.
I'm going to show you. I'm going to share one more thing here. If I can figure out how to share again.
You can do it.
I can do it. I can do it. I smart. See this guy?
Hold on. Add it to stage. There we go. Okay, I have your screen up now.
I want you to look at something. You see this?
$100. Sexual assault. I shouldn't even be surprised anymore.
Look at this.
Oh, those are all his charges that he's
Uh-huh.
had. So he's a violent person. Kidnapping, assault of a family
Kidnapping.
member.
He's a very violent person. And mind you, if you look at the date ranges, right, 23, 22, these are 3 different women. These are 3 different women. We have assault, impeding breath, violation of protective order, stalking, tampering with a witness, aggravated kidnapping, sexual assault, violence. You look at these bond amounts. Do you know why?
Because they can't do PR bonds anymore for violent offenses.
This is correct. They cannot give out a PR or a GOB bond on several of our violent felonies, including felony violence against a family, sexual assault, kidnapping, all these kinds of things. So this lovely judge here decided to circumvent the situation. And also it's not Carolyn Dozie. I love her. She's amazing. But Frank Aguilar, this was his court, would then set his.
The ones she had to take over when he passed
Well,
away?
he was.
He was gone.
He was convicted right before Frank passed away, and I say passed away right before Frank killed himself driving drunk. So he didn't just pass away. Frank killed himself driving drunk, hit a pole. Awesome. So I hope it hurts where he is. But he would set these surety bonds amount for $100. Okay, so he paid like $1 to get out of jail. And that's how he's able to get around the PR bond. He can't get a PR bond because of these types of charges. So instead, he'll set them to $1, $100, $1,000, so that he doesn't have to pay anything. These victims' families were writing letters to this judge. They're showing up to Frank's court and they're saying, "Please stop letting him out. My daughter is going to die." This is 3 different women and their families begging the judges to keep them in jail, because every time he'd get out of jail, he would go right back to one of these girls' house and he kidnapped one, sexually assaulted her, stole her phone, beat her up, kicked her out of the car on the side of the road the day after he gets out of jail. And then this is at the same time. So all of this is going on while Frank Aguilar was facing his domestic violence cases himself in Galveston County where he had been charged with domestic violence for the second time. And this was a case that they asked him to recuse himself from because they were similar charges. This is a domestic abuser. And Frank refused to recuse himself. And then here we see that he was giving this dude $100 and $1 and $1,000 bonds on very violent charges. And that is how he ended up getting suspended before he killed himself. So these types of things are how they're getting that away with, trying to feel better. And then what made me laugh is that he's saying, when he was arrested, and part of his bond conditions were that he cannot have a weapon or bullets or ammunition, anything. And so he was barred. And then all of a sudden he's telling the court that I have to face these violent people in my courtroom every day. I shouldn't be barred from having a weapon because these people are dangerous. Oh, they're dangerous now, but they're not dangerous when you put them back out on the streets with us. And we shouldn't, it's perfectly fine for them to be out here with us, and we can't defend ourselves, but they're not okay to be out there with you. And then you're mad they took your guns when you beat up your girlfriend.
He is one of the dangerous persons.
He is the dangerous person.
Yeah,
Well,
he was one of the dangerous people.
Yeah, that he was, not only to women, but to the general public. So when he died, he left a Texans game, drunk off 3 times over the legal limit. This is a judge, an elected official, an attorney, who was 3 times over the legal limit, arguing with his chick again, drives off the road, hits a pole. Now, let's be glad that he only hit a pole and killed himself, because everybody else leaving the Texans game, there's 30,000 people there. He could have really hurt a family who took their kids to their very first NFL game, and they're 6 and 7 years old, and they're holding their little stuffies and their popcorn, and they're all excited. He could have killed a family of 9. We don't know. Thankfully, he only killed himself, because sometimes karma works that way. Thank you, girl. But this is a very real situation where you've got somebody who's out on the streets driving drunk. We've got repeat people with DUI after DUI after DUI that are being let out. And then you look at Miranda O'Donnell, right? So this is the inmate they used to create this bail reform consent decree, who then became a fugitive of justice for herself. They did this whole lawsuit suing Harris County because she couldn't afford to get out of jail on her 5th DUI, and then she didn't go to court.
The irony of that, right? There's a whole decree named after her, and she's
and she didn't go to court. She still has a warrant.
She's on that 179-page thing.
She's on
and
it.
So we have
those
thousands
178
of
pages. That's just for this past year. That's not overall.
Probably thousands of pages.
Hundreds of that. We have hundreds of thousands of fugitives from justice that are free in Harris County right now. Imagine how many people you see on a day-to-day basis that are next to you in traffic or walking with you in a HEB, and these people have warrants for violent offenses. And then you look at, Sean over here talking about he wants to do trade programs and do away with terms of probation. And then so he's going to defer somebody. They're not going to have a criminal record. They're going to have a plumbing license now because he sent them to freaking trade school and join the union. They're going to send them into Meemaw's house. Meemaw's not going to know that this is somebody that committed a violent crime and got it taken away because they got their plumber's license, and now they're in there to fix Meemaw's plumbing. And these are violent people.
Right.
That's not fair. You do a background check. You'd have to do an extensive background check to even find out they were charged. But if it's adjudicated, okay, right? But now they have a trade. Well, we want to help it so they can get a job. That's fine. Do trade school when they're in prison. But we should be protected and instead of them being protected. Those terms are put in there to protect your victims. And Ken brought it up at the ACLU when he said, I want to do away with terms of probation, or I want to do away with terms of pretrial. Oh, no. Those are there to protect your victims. You've got your restraining orders. You've got your anger management. You've got your therapy. You've got your GPS monitors. All of these things that are there to protect your victim. If they don't have those terms, nobody's watching them. Nobody's making sure they go back to court. Nobody's making sure that they don't harass and stalk their victims or something ever happens. And look at Catherine Gajardo. Her husband got out, turned around, went home, murdered her at 12 hours.
Yep.
Killed her cat, gets arrested for domestic violence, and 12 hours later, he's back on the street, goes back there, kills her again.
He had a PR bond, didn't he?
Killed her while he was out on a PR bond for domestic violence.
Yeah, and that's the reason why we were able to get a bill passed and then a law passed where, like, we shouldn't have had to have make a law where judges don't give violent
To do the right
offenders
thing.
PR bonds. That should be common sense. So
Mm-hmm.
to get around that, they're doing the dollar bond, $100 bond. There was another person that didn't he like kidnap some woman and keep her for like days, and then the judge gave like $1 bond to get around it. Yeah, that, and these are not one-offs. These are things that are happening over and over and
Every single
over
day.
and over. And you know, what we need is for those of you that are in Texas, you know, victims need your help. We need your help with supporting the crime bills, these bills that come out. The Justice Committee is going to meet in either April or May. The current crime bills have passed the House. However, the chances of them getting out of the Senate are very slim.
It's going to be hard.
It's going to be very hard. So if you are in Texas, we need your help to contact your senator. If you're able to take the day off and sign up to testify in favor of these bills, there's a few different bills that are coming up. And so if the
Write a
person,
letter of support, call
yeah,
your senators, show up. I mean, we need help. It can't just be the same group of 10 of us trying to make a difference. We definitely need the community to be vocal with us. Like, understand, we are real people. We're not politicians. We do not get paid to advocate. We don't ever get paid to advocate for the community, for victims. We volunteer our time so that people don't have to go through what we went through and having to learn all this on our own. So we need the help from the community. We don't have the resources to go fight the state. We don't have the resources to fight these politicians. We're out there begging for help from the state of Texas, and it's going to require us to be able to get the attention and get the cooperation of our politicians. And luckily, and this is what's insane, I grew up, you know, everybody around me, you know, we grew up Democrats, and being a Democrat, typically in the day, very moderate. You are the party of the people. You support the working class, but you know, there's also law and order, and somehow the Democratic Party became the party of inclusion, but the party of inclusion means it includes us and not you. So there's no longer justice, it's just us. So now you can include everybody else, but you're going to exclude your moderates and your conservatives, and then want to call us fake Democrats like him. Right.
Right.
And so
Yes.
we're stuck in this middle of, okay, I don't really care if you're a Republican or a Democrat. Do what's right. Right. So when I sit there and we go to these events, right, how many times, look at when we had Hurricane Beryl, and I have the senior living facilities down the street with no food, no water, no power. These people are sick and dying, and I am calling Rodney Ellis's office, Sheila Jackson Lee's office, everybody's office that represents this area. They're all Democrats. And at that point, nobody's answering, nobody's responding. And I reached out, and do you know who showed up?
Who?
Alexander Miller, Dan Simons, Mike Knox. These are all Republicans that showed up, and they showed out, and they helped these people. And it's been every single time that I have reached out for help, I can count on one hand the Democrat politicians that have responded and helped. And that's been Ed Gonzalez, our wonderful sheriff. Love him. Pena, who used to be our fire chief, he always showed up. So Sam was always there. Ed was always there. And then you have like Armando, who's a state representative. He's an amazing man. He's very open to conversation. He grew up in the same situations we grew up in. He represents Northside, Northline, all that area, Aldine, that way. That's it.
Sally Alcorn from City Council she's been around a lot too. I've run into her a lot. She's great. And what you're talking about is exactly what I went through too. You know, I grew up in a Democrat household, definitely, you know, moderate. I am the first generation born here on my dad's side. My dad is a Cuban immigrant, immigrated here from Cuba. You know, that whole side of my family, all immigrants, all, you know, some of them didn't even speak English. And at the end of the day, Austin and I used to get in arguments about politics because he grew up very conservative, and we would argue about some of these things. And after he was murdered, and I'm reaching out for help and to be heard, I felt very betrayed by the party I had stood for so long. And especially some of the interactions that I had with some of the politicians after the
Gross.
fact, Gene Wu, made me look at things a different way. And and I've been called things on social media too, even just spreading the information, especially during the election time.
Oh gosh, the
You and I were
worst.
getting attacked, all these things, and they're like, "Oh, you don't like Lena Hidalgo because you're racist or this and that." And like, first of all, I am also Hispanic, even though I'm very,
Mhm.
white looking. You are too. You got called a white lady and all sorts of things.
I
Uh,
always get called white lady. You're fake this, and you're white. Man, I am Latina and I'm a female. So you
And
what?
even just spreading crime statistics, I get called a bootlicker, and
Oh, all the time.
I'm not saying that I love all law enforcement. We need to hold the ones that are accountable that are not good law enforcement. I'm not for anybody being beat. I have a friend of mine that was detained by the New York Police Department because he matched a suspect description and was beaten in a stairwell in New York. Like, I know that these
Mhm.
things happen, and I'm not condoning any of that, but I'm going to support the law enforcement that's out there and working hard and trying to protect us with what they're given. But I also need the system to protect me. And
100%.
I
They
got
were
called.
attacking me the other day when we were talking about, Francis, so Dre Francis over here. And they're like, "You're a bootlicker." No, no, no. What do you care? What about when with Goins? And I'm like, here we go. Listen, if they're a cop and they've committed a crime, to me, they're not a cop, they're a criminal. And I don't care
Yes.
if they're a cop or not. I'm not going to just automatically say, oh no, he didn't do anything because he's a cop. Bull. We sit, then you look at this and it's like, we've got this detention officer in Montgomery County that was arrested.
Yep.
Well, that arrest came from somewhere, right? Like, obviously, I'm not only going to I'm going to work with all victims. I don't care if they're in or out of the jail.
Right.
If you're a victim, you're a victim. And if your civil rights are being taken because you're being victimized by a jailer or a cop, I'm going after that jailer, and I'm going to go after that cop, and I'm going to go after, I don't care who it is. If you're a perp, you're a perp. And so call me a bootlicker all you want, because I love my cops that are good cops.
Right.
And then there's bad cops. There are bad apples in every industry, but we should not ostracize an entire industry because you have some bad people.
Right.
You can't tell me. I mean, look at churches, right? Like, you expect for your preacher to be a good person, and how many, right? Like, there are going to be bad players in every industry there is.
Right.
But you can't.
Teachers, there's bad people everywhere. We can't,
Yes. Look at
we
these
can't
teachers
swing
over and over and
things
over.
out so
Can't
much.
even send our kids to school.
Yeah.
They're getting molested, groomed, being taught things that are not natural to our own beliefs. Like, let me parent my own kids. I just want you to teach them some PEMDAS, okay? Like, let's just do the math, reading, arithmetic. Let's not talk about other things at school. And I certainly don't want you telling my child that it's okay if they get on Snapchat and talk to your teacher secretly.
Right.
Like, these are things that shouldn't be happening in society, and they are. So there are a lot of bad people. And without the community being able to say this is wrong, now what happens is we have this, when you're out there and you step in and try to do the right thing and you say something's wrong, you're attacked.
Yep. Yeah, you
You're
and
attacked for calling it out.
I have been attacked. I've been called a fake advocate. I've been called a grifter. I'm not monetized on YouTube. I don't have enough followers.
No, not
Because I had
monetized on
like my Cash App link or something on my link tree. And sometimes people sent me $5. Like, do you know how much money I have spent? I don't get paid to go to the Capitol. I had to take time off. All the books that I gave to murder victims' families, trying to help guide them through the process, or the time that I've spent. I don't, like we were saying earlier, we don't get paid for these things. If somebody is kind enough to send me $5 or $10, I
They'll
generally,
buy a taco. Yeah. Oh, I
yeah,
appreciate
like
that.
I
Thanks.
have spent hundreds of dollars on material to try to help murder victims' families to not go through what I went through. I don't make a damn thing doing any of this or streaming. It's made me a target. And I've even had people make videos about me. I've had people slander Austin, which that is the most hurtful thing. Don't slander somebody that I love that was murdered. What the hell is wrong with you? And I see other murder victims' families dealing with the same thing. They think that these families want to be nationally known or have a 2020 episode. No, it's going to happen whether they participate or not. So they are participating so they can control the narrative. And speaking out doesn't mean we want money. A lot of times people want to help or donate and do stuff, and that's okay. It doesn't make you a grifter, and being a victim is expensive.
Yeah, it
Being
is. And
it,
I'm going to share this real quick too, just so you look at what now, mind you, I've been doing research since 2018. Okay. So when you want to look at a case file, okay, and you want to download the entire case,
it's $48.
13 pages of, or 13 documents that need to, and mind you, some of these are multiple pages, but $48. And this is just on one charge. Okay. So this guy, we always saw Mr. Nana Georgie over here with multiple charges. And so just to be able to print those out there it's $48. So this is stuff that costs money. I've had to pay to download case files for years. I mean, I've got, I don't know, over 5 terabytes of data that I've been saving for my research, that's documented and chronicled and put into little, all of that. I paid for that.
Right.
That's my account on the clerk's site. I paid for that.
Yeah.
I have to pay for my subscriptions to different accounts. Like, I don't pay for it anymore because it's friggin' expensive, but Pacer, where you can look at federal cases and all that stuff, good Lord, that's expensive. It's expensive.
These
I
are
can't
like,
do it.
it costs to what we're doing and trying to spread awareness and all this stuff. It's because we need help doing this, because when we go to the Capitol, there are possibly hundreds of people that are on the other side against whatever the bill is that is pro victim. And because, like, TOPS, for instance, that organization, we've had to go against a couple times. And the only time that there's victims that typically group together are if there's a mass shooting or something like that. Those families typically, support each other. But how many murder victims' families, how many sexual assault survivors are out there? There's way more sexual assault
Hundreds of
survivors.
thousands.
Almost every woman that I know has been sexually assaulted in some form. And I'm tired of it. And we get out battled in the Senate because these organizations, they have money. They have money.
Yes.
Like I said, we are doing this all on our own. So if you live in Texas, please, when the Justice Committee comes up, if you can go testify in favor of these bills, great. If not, please send a letter. I'm just going to name off some of these bills real quick. And these are all backed by Senator Huffman is the author of these bills. So if you want to go look up Senator Huffman, she has all these bills listed, but it's going to be SB 9, which has to do with the release of defendants on bail and the duties of magistrates and the regulation of charitable bail organizations like TOPS that we just mentioned. SB 1047, relating to the release of defendants on bail, the duties of magistrate in certain criminal proceedings, and the notice provided by peace officers to victims of family violence, stalking, harassment, and terroristic threats. It is terrifying to be a victim of domestic violence, but it is especially terrifying in this day and age, because all you are going to do if you call the police at this point is piss them off, because they're not going to get locked up. They're going to get bail $100 bail and get right out and possibly murder you, just like poor Caitlin.
So
Caitlin
10 years ago,
and she was pregnant.
she was pregnant. And so you look at, prior to the O'Donnell consent decree and all these social justice little warriors out of here talking about free the prisons and get free my boy out of here. When you had something like this and you were arrested, for domestic violence, you sit in that tank for 24 to 48 hours and you have time to calm down. And that also gives you time for your victim to find a safe place to go. So then I have a victim I'm working with whose offender was arrested for felony domestic violence, right? He went to jail. And, 8 hours later, he was kicked out of the JPC with the PR bond and he went right back to her house. And Precinct 4 caught him jumping the fence after he'd already been trespassed and told he couldn't be there. So he's jumping the fence to get back to her. They catch him again. They sent him back to jail. And he got out 9 hours later on a GOB and PR bond again. I didn't even have time to get this girl out of her house. And then I'm over there at her property can we move her to another unit? And it's like, we don't have one until next month. And I'm trying to get her out of this unit and get her safe, and he's already out of jail. So then he comes back again, but this time she's got friends over. He starts a scene and one of the friends shoots him.
Yeah.
So it's escalated to this point where he kept going back and he's angry and he's threatening her and he's got all these threats and he shows up at her house again, but this time she's got somebody protecting her and he gets shot. None of that should have happened. Not only that, he goes to court and he takes a plea to drop it down to a misdemeanor. They gave him time served in the county jail of 9 days, which the county jail is 3 to 1. So every 1 day you serve, you get credit for 3. So instead of getting 30 days in jail, he ended up only doing 9. And this entire time, he wasn't a citizen. ICE was never contacted that this man was illegal here, not a citizen, and he kept reoffending all in the course of 2 weeks, picks up 3 charges of domestic violence, takes a misdemeanor plea, gets out of jail, and the whole time he's not even here legally. So then he goes back and now he gets shot. And you know what happens to her? She lost her job and she lost her home because that happened in her house.
Yes.
And she worked where all of this happened. So she gets fired, gets evicted.
She shouldn't have gotten fired because she didn't ask for any of this. Because a lot of the times the victims get blamed in these situations, but they have no idea what it's like. I was
She had a protective order and he was trespassed. He wasn't supposed to be on the property. That's not her fault that he's climbing the back fence. And I get it, but it's horrible. And that's what happens. So now she's homeless, doesn't have a job, and he's still looking for her and he's out on the streets. Now he's blaming her for him getting shot. So now he's even more pissed off. And now he's still harassing and stalking her. And she's bouncing from house to this girl's 20 years old.
Yeah, and that there's a reason why Harris County is number 1 in the state of Texas for partner homicides, because there's no protection. I have an acquaintance that has been in an abusive relationship for a while, and every time I'm this close to getting her to get out of there, she's terrified because she knows that if she gets a protective order or whatever, he's not going to listen to that. I mean, he hurt her so bad, her vision is permanently changed. And she is too scared.
Almost legally blind in my right eye from being punched so many times in my eye that it has damaged my retina. And so I would have to have very expensive surgery to fix the vision in my right eye from consistently being punched in the same eye over years, or go blind. So I go blind, and you can't even see how thick these bad babies are, but I can't see. And this one is worse than this one. And then on top of that, I got 32 stitches in my face on this side. Okay, so every single day, now we're years and years later, every single day that I get dressed and I put my makeup on, I see 32 stitches in my face. And it reminds me of every time I called the cops and he went to jail and he came right back. It would escalate and get even worse to where I didn't want to call the cops. I stopped calling the cops. And just like you, my neighbors called the cops. And this is Austin Police Department. So Travis County shows up and I split, right? Swollen, bleeding, my lip. There's another one here. I had 3 stitches here above my lip where he split my lips. I have 3 here, 32 here, face split open, bleeding, crying, screaming. And he says, "Oh, I'm gonna leave. I'm not gonna stay here." And the cops were like, "Well, he's leaving, so."
Yeah, so it's fine. Yeah, it's
He's gonna come back, right? Like, what is he gonna leave and go to his friend's house for a couple of hours and then he's gonna come back? Yeah, because he did. And the only way that I can escape this situation is to leave everything behind, everything in my house, all my clothes, I just got in my car and I had to leave. I'm bleeding. I have no money, nothing. He's got control over the finances. He's got control over who I'm allowed to talk to. I didn't see or talk to my family for 2 years, like ostracized from all my friends. And I have nowhere to go. I'm aimlessly driving through East and West Texas. I don't even know. I'm just driving. I didn't know where to go. I had no resources and then end up at the hospital where at the time I worked. So now I have to go to the emergency room where I worked, swollen, beat, bloody, and I have to sit there and have a doctor that I'm friends with and work side by side, put my face back together. It's embarrassing.
Yeah.
And I know that if I go home, I might not make it out the door again. I'm not going to survive the next one. And he's going to be pissed off and I'm not going to survive and I have to leave. And then I do. And I come back here to Houston just to get traumatized again and then sit there and ask the task force, what's going on? Why is this just every other month we're getting robbed again? I've been beaten, jumped, pistol whipped. I mean, you name it. And I'm having to watch my employees go through the same thing. And these are my kids, man. I spent 10, 12 hours a day with these kids. I saw them more than my own child. And we're close and they're being pistol whipped and beaten and dragged out in the concrete. And, you know, it's six offenders and 2 or 3 of us at a time. And they're armed with AR-15s and pistols, and they're 14, 15, 16 years old, full of adrenaline, have no experience with weapons whatsoever. And it's the scariest situation in the world to be facing an adrenaline-pumped juvenile with a deadly weapon. And if you make one wrong move, somebody's going to die. And it was just constant. Why is this happening? And the cops are sitting there telling me, well, we're getting real tired of picking up the same kids every other week. Like, we get them in jail and they get right back out. And then we're picking them up the next week for the same thing. One of them that was a part of the robbery was a 12-year-old girl wearing an ankle monitor from a previous aggravated armed robbery. And she's standing at the door as the lookout. And that's how it got noticed for that robbery, was witnessed by a police officer that was on his way to work, sitting at the red light. He sees her standing there with her ankle monitor, looks beyond her, sees an AR-15 being waved in our face, and called it in. And those kids were out of jail the next day.
Yeah.
Oh, their mommies came and picked them up. Oh, their mommies did? Their mommies came and picked them up?
There's a
Because their
reason why
mommies-
there's a reason why crime is escalating with teenagers, because they're held accountable even less.
Look here, just this week, we have the kids that were shot at McDonald's, right, over a fight over a soccer game a couple days ago. Then we have another 14-year-old murdered last night over a cell phone. And then we have these other ones that, you know, robbed this dude up here in Spring for, you know, off a Facebook sale. They robbed and killed him. Like, these are 16 and 17-year-olds that are committing very violent crime, and there's no accountability. And then we have politicians like Gene Wu, who wants to say that juveniles should not be held responsible for the felonies that they do. As a matter of fact, we need to raise the age of juvenile offenders before they're being charged as an adult to 21.
Oh.
If you're old enough to vote, buy beer, buy cigarettes, and play the lottery, you're old enough to go to jail for some crime you did.
Yeah.
And of course, obviously that's never going to pass, but that's what he truly believes. He believes that children should not be held accountable. Well, I'm sorry, but if your child pulls out an AR-15 and shoots somebody, they're not a child
That's
at
not
16 years
something
old with
that's
an
just
AR-15.
not something I could have fathomed as a teenager. And
well, I
you
know at 16 we weren't running around with AR-15s. I had a slingshot, some rubber bands, and a good time. Like
I mean, I
some toilet
wasn't,
paper.
I wasn't the best kid. I definitely hung out with the wrong people and ran the streets and did a bunch of stupid shit, but like we never got to like that point, like we still were like, this is too far. We would get into fights, beat each
Mhm.
other up, that kind of stuff. But like to bring a gun into it or anything like that, that would be completely unheard
It's
of.
unheard of.
And
Absolutely unheard of. I mean, it was always a thing, back home. You're gonna go fight is like, all right, well, we're gonna meet up on Snake Road. We're gonna meet
Mhm.
up on the dead end, and then don't jump in. It's one-on-one. Don't
Yep.
jump in. Nobody brought weapons.
Yes, we brought friends just in case the other people jumped in, and sometimes other people jumped in, and then I don't know, even with that kind of stuff, we still we had like this code that we lived by, and we still followed that,
Mhm.
even though, because I distinctly
Yeah.
remember meeting up with this girl that hated me because I was dating her boyfriend in the middle of nowhere after she vandalized my car, and I brought my people and she brought her people, and it was just me and her. And then uh one of her friends jumped in, and then my friend grabbed her, and then like all the other people didn't get involved in it, and nobody had a gun or wanted to stab, so like you don't take it that far, and once it's done, it's done. Like
Mhm.
this fight is done, it's over
Problem
with.
squashed.
It's not like
Problem
that
squashed.
anymore. They're, like you said, they're
No.
killing each other
You
over.
stepped on my shoe.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
We
And
had an argument. These kids at this McDonald's, it was an ongoing argument of an altercation they had at a soccer game. And then all these little Edgars and their Edgar herd, saw the other Edgar herd from the altercation before and then they get into this argument and he runs up on the truck and he gets shot. Like, why? Why are arguments turning deadly between kids? It's because there's no accountability. They're not learning that there's consequences for their actions.
yeah.
And this is our fault as society and parents that our children are being raised by the internet and they're being raised by social media rather than being raised with morals and values by their parents. And then you look at society, we grew up with the big brothers and big sisters and the YMCA and all these mentorship programs. And our politicians were always trying to do community programs in the community so that kids had something to do to fill their time and they weren't out committing crime. But now, instead of all of those programs, we have everything that's like, okay, look, we're going to have these seminars on how to expunge your criminal record. We're going to have trade school programs that you can go to instead of going to jail. And so they're learning I can commit a crime and somebody pays for me to go to school.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I never have to go to jail.
Yeah. It's.
We're also teaching our children the excuse mentality.
Yes. Yes.
You can make, no, you pulled me over because I'm a minority. No, I pulled you over because, you weren't driving on the right side of the road. I pulled you over because you committed a traffic citation and that's what you're supposed to do. And why do you have a Glock and a switch in your car?
Mhm.
And so that's our fault that you have an illegal weapon in your car. And then they go to jail for unlawful carrying of a firearm because they're underage and get a PR bond and turn around. They're right back on the street. Gun gets destroyed. And they never have to do any jail time. It just gets dismissed for no probable cause.
Yeah, and we're not even going to get into the conversation of what's happening with felons with guns.
Felons with weapons. That's a
That'll
whole
be,
nother 3
yeah,
segment.
that'll be a 3-hour conversation.
Yes,
But yeah,
this is a problem. And so without the community, with all of us being able to tell our politicians and tell our people that we need to be safe and we deserve to have more rights than somebody who offended us and killed our family members. And again, we talked about this, April brought it up too. Funerals are not cheap.
no.
So when you lose a family member, who pays for that? County doesn't pay for that.
You're
So
lucky
when you
if
have to,
you're lucky if the victim fund pays for stuff. It
well, you're real
might.
lucky if you can even get your application looked at by the
Yeah.
time your person has already been buried for 2 years
Yes.
and you're
Yep.
still trying to get a headstone. And then now you're not luckily they changed that. you're not the victim. You can't file out the application for the crime victim compensation fund unless you're the victim. Well, the victim's dead.
Yep. Yeah, Austin's funeral cost $25,000. That's not something I would have had. I'm glad that his parents were able to have that kind of money. But there's another mother that I know, her daughter was murdered by her abusive ex-boyfriend. And it's been, I think, 2 years now, and she still doesn't have a headstone because she can't afford it. Headstones are very, very expensive. And like when we see these news clips, you see the family or the trial happens or whatever, this family is dealing with stuff forever. And it's very expensive. Like I said earlier, it's very expensive to be a victim.
A victim or a
And
surviving family member.
yeah,
You have
nobody
surviving family members that now have to not only pay for their family member, but now they have to go to court and they have to pay all those fees. And then you're still dealing with the trauma of losing a child or losing a loved one. And then years. I mean, how long have we been going to court for this little girl?
Yeah.
It's been over 3 years since she was murdered, and we don't even get to go to trial yet because Sean Teare pulled his fuck shit last minute. Now we have to get a whole new prosecutor and start all over, and we were ready to go to trial.
Yeah. And for those of you that don't know what she's talking about, Arlene was murdered, 3 years ago on Valentine's Day?
3 years on Valentine's.
Yeah, and there was a special prosecutor brought in and by the previous district attorney, and then the current district attorney decided, nope, we're not doing that. So now they have to start all over, and the family has to go through this process all over again, learn a new prosecutor, and all that stuff. And my friend that I mentioned that was in the chat earlier, where her son was murdered, I'm pretty sure she's been waiting 5 years because I think her son was murdered a few months after Austin. She's been waiting 5 years to go. It's either 5 or 4 years that she's been
close
waiting
to
to go
5
to
years.
trial, which
When
is
I met Letty 2 years ago, it had already been 3, I think.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're going on a long time.
Yeah, and it having the justice system drag it out, it makes the pain and what the families are dealing with so much worse because you want this chapter to be closed. I mean, you're
You
never
can't
going to
even
move on
start
from it.
healing.
No. And you're
You
never
can't
going
start
to
healing,
fully
and you have to go to court every single day and tell these stories over and over and over. It just opens your wounds, and it just keeps it open, and just like rubbing salt in those wounds every single time you have to tell your story again. And you never even get to start. And we don't want to say closure. You just don't even get to start healing when you have to talk about it every single day for month after month, year after year. Another victim that I talked about that I won't bring up right now, but same thing with her. She's as a child, and she's having to speak her trauma over and over and over and over, and then have the defense attorneys attacking her. This is a child, saying her mental illness was there before she was attacked. No, sir. She has mental illness problems now because of the trauma that started when she's a very young child, and now she's a very young teenager having to face her offender in court and tell this story over and over and over and over and over and over. And now it's 5 years, and she hasn't even been able to begin to heal. And finally just ended up having to just go ahead and plea him out because she can't even mentally handle trial anymore. She can't even go to court anymore. This is terrible.
Yeah, being
It's
a teenager is hard
terrible.
enough to have to deal with something like that. So Letty just mentioned, so on her son's murder case, they are on their eighth prosecutor. Their eighth prosecutor. Her son was murdered December 11th of 2019. So yeah, eighth prosecutor. So she's had to go through this process that many times, and like it's really difficult to describe what it does to somebody unless you've been in that position. But it takes everything out of you. Because I've been with Letty in the courtroom, and I've gone in the courtroom with her, and I see the change when she walks back out the door. Like I see
it hurts.
It's like something's taken from them because they still haven't moved forward at all. And we have to do better as a society. We have to do better as a system But our biggest battle right now is getting these bills to move forward out of the Senate. And you mentioned Jean Wu earlier. Jean Wu is on the Justice Committee. So for those of us that are going to go testify, we're going to have to sit in front of, Jean Wu and some other, I know you're excited for that, Jean Wu and some other senators that we have felt maybe haven't been the best to us. But we still have to go there and say the things that we need to say. So if you are in Texas, we need your help. Make sure that you are following Senator Huffman if you want to learn more about those bills. And so we're gonna talk real quick about
Oh, poor
Senator.
Christina. I see her. She's being victim blamed.
Yes, being victim blamed. So we're going to talk about Senator Huffman real quick and Sean Teare. What bill was it? Do you remember what bill it was that they were supposed to? He was supposed to. So I'm not sure
Let me
how
look. I think it was SB 9, but let me double check.
So I'm not sure how this happened because he told Sean Teare, Harris County District Attorney, told Senator Huffman and I believe Senator Betancourt, I could be wrong, but Senator Betancourt had tweeted about her too. He had told them and met with them that he was going to be for this bill. He was going to speak in favor of the bill. But then the day of the testimony, he told them that he was no longer going to support that. And I believe his reasoning was that he wanted to make sure that the defendants had a lawyer, but they would anyway, because that's how the court system works. But which would have been an issue before you said you were in favor of the bill, like nothing changed. So I'm not really sure how I feel about that. I've been trying to find the other information on it, but I feel like some of the tweets that I saw about this were deleted.
No, I just gotta find it because I think they were in like comment sections.
Because I thought I saw Senator Huffman tweet about it. I swore I saw Senator Betancourt tweet about it, but it's really not okay to. I mean, look, you are completely allowed to have whatever decisions that you want, but as a victim, it bothers me to have somebody flip-flopping that is supposed to be for the bill that is going to help you, especially somebody like a district attorney. Because there was a bill that I was a part of last legislative session, and there was a different district attorney, which I'm not going to name, that was causing some issues with this bill. And it was like you said earlier, we are just normal people. We are not politicians. We are not polished speakers. We do this on our own time. So to me, going up against a district attorney is like going up against a juggernaut. For me, that's what it feels like. So to have a district attorney flip-flopping and then suddenly go against the bill that I'm trying to support doesn't feel very good. And I'm not really sure
how. It was SB 9. It was the SJR 5 that he flipped on.
It was SGR 5 that he flipped on? Okay, which one is SGR 5?
Well, that's going to be the SB 9, the bail reform bill. Is what he flipped on.
With the charitable bail organizations?
Well, the bail reform. Let me find him, pull it up. Is the one that April and Nancy and Lexi all went and testified against. He wrote a letter of support and then rescinded his letter. I'll find it.
Yeah, okay. So, because remember, I text you, I'm like, did I have a dream? Or did this
No, you did
happen?
text me about it, and I was like, I'll find it. And then Dre Francis got out of jail and things just.
Oh yeah, no, we've been focusing on that a lot to talk about those things because I think any of us that are advocates, especially in Harris County, are outraged with it, and I hate that a law enforcement family is having to go through what we do. I'm also, while you're looking that up, I'm just going to share real quick another Twitter account. If you are in the Dallas area, there is a Twitter Dallas crime app, Dallas Real Time Crime. You're going to want to follow that to stay up to date with stuff in Dallas. She's also made a website that has all the data from all over. So if there's something that you're trying to find that is crime related, or like if you're trying to look up college crime reports or a county, she has every state, every county, everything on here in all in one place. So I'm putting that in the chat real quick so you guys can check that out. So if you are interested in looking up crime data or looking up I mean, anything really, it's going to be on this website. So you definitely want to check that out, because it puts everything all in one place. Like if you're looking for all the Harris County stuff or Montgomery County, and if you don't see your county on there, let me know, or your city, let me know, or you can let Dallas Real Time Crime know on Twitter as well.
I sent you Betancourt's statement.
All right, let me. Okay, yeah, okay, so I wasn't tripping. Here it is. All right, so yeah, because he even tagged Sean in it. Okay, so this was on the 20th. All right, let me find it. So earlier when the doorbell rang, like I've been waiting to get something delivered, but they never sent me the tracking, so I had no idea it was coming today. And of course, it would come like right
when you sit down,
right when I'm doing a live. But it's a mattress that I got, so I had to get a bigger mattress because my dog likes to take up all the space. So
for sure.
Here it is. Okay, all right, I found it. All right, so I'm just going to put this on the screen while I read it. All right, so Texas Senate passes bail reform again. Okay, yeah, this is the right one. Okay. The Texas Senate has passed fundamental bail bond reform in 2021, 2023, and now as of 2025. SJR 5, a common sense bill to stop the release of violent criminals on bond, which ensures judges across Texas won't treat violent criminals like popcorn. That's interesting. Which,
I don't know, man.
like popcorn? Anyway, it just gave me a flashback to this reality show that I watched where this girl that was getting cheated on called the side women popcorn hose. But anyway,
I don't know, but I don't want to do food with my crime.
Just letting them back out on our streets. I spoke with the author, Senator Huffman, and this was the person that we were talking about, Caitlin Rose. That was murdered along with her unborn child by her husband, who was released on a second PR bond after he chloroformed her cat and beat her up. The cat died, by the way. And yeah, and he still got a PR bond for killing a cat. On January 14th, Harris County District Attorney Sean Teare told me Chair Huffman and other members he supported SJR 5 to keep violent criminals off the streets. Yet when Senator Huffman laid out SJR 5 on the Senate floor, we learned Sean DA Teare rescinded his support despite bipartisan support from other DAs across Texas. And there were other DAs. The district attorney from Comal County was there. District attorney from Montgomery County was there. When we turn the news on, we see tragedy every night, tragedies that could have been prevented with this reform. 161 lives lost in Harris County alone because judges didn't have this tool. The Texas House must pass this bill. Oh, it's the House. Is it the House or the Senate? So the Senate already passed. It's the House. I keep getting them confused.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's the House that we're going up against next. The Texas House must pass this bill. If Harris County judges had used basic common sense, many victims would still be alive today. On the Senate floor, I made it clear this is not a partisan issue. This is a public safety. There should be no constitutional right for perpetrators to prey on Texas citizens. I dearly hope that the Senate never has to pass this bill again. We are up against a big battle for these bills to pass and to move through the House. I don't know that they will, but we desperately need your help with these. And if you don't know who represents you, you can actually Google who I've done this, represents me. And you will find, if you're in Texas, there is a website that pops up that is capital.texas.gov. You put in your address and you will find out who represents you. Or if you're registered to vote, you can go to your county website and pull up your voting registration, which I would hope if you're registered to vote, you would know who represents you, but not everybody does. So find that information, find out who represents you, and contact them. We need you to contact everybody in Texas that represents you. We need these bills to pass. I'm going to put a link in the chat for the Texas government, but we really desperately need your help because it is the same few of us that keep going up to the Capitol, and I don't want them to think that other people don't care, because they do. I have hundreds of people watching me right now.
And we also, the 2 senators that voted no.
Oh, yeah.
2 senators that voted no. So if they are your senator, they need to hear from you.
Mm-hmm.
And if that's Travis County, that's Sarah Eckhart in Travis County voted no. And then right here in Harris County, Molly Cook, brand new senator. Don't forget, she's an ER nurse. So she knows how to deal with crime victims because she's an ER nurse. Also voted no against this bail reform bill. So if you live in Harris County and Molly Cook is your senator, I'm sorry for that, 1, sorry. But 2, you need to be contacting Molly Cook's office. If you're in Travis County, you need to be calling Sarah's office, because these women right here are going to cause a whole lot of problems for people like me. Females like me that have stitches in their face and scars for the rest of their lives are not being protected by women like Molly Cook and Sarah Eckert. Okay, so Molly wants to say that because she was an ER nurse, she knows how domestic violence victims feel because she's had to meet them while she's in the hospital. Ma'am, I am a survivor of 13 years of very violent domestic abuse, and you do not represent me. And thank God she is not my senator, because I would be calling every single day.
The ironic thing with Eckert is she got mad.
And now she's over here mad at Garza.
Yeah.
Ma'am, you're the problem. You're the one who voted. You're the one who has always defended him. You're the one who has never wanted anybody else to do any better. You don't want police in Travis County either. You don't want the city of Austin to hire more police officers.
No.
And then you want to turn around and get mad because Garza messed up an indictment because
I have a
the news?
video. I found a video of her talking out against him. Let's see what she has to say.
Oh, yeah.
Breaking tonight, an Austin senator issuing a highly unusual rebuke to a member of her own party, Travis County DA José Garza. Now, this is just part of a growing political and legal firestorm over the prosecution of violent felonies. Senior reporter Tony Blahetsky joins us in studio now. And Tony, what did State Senator Sarah Eckhart say today?
Quita, is quite extraordinary. Senator Eckhart says she has grave concerns, those are her words, about José Garza's administration. This comes after the KVU defenders identified at least 2 cases in recent weeks in which prosecutors missed key deadlines to bring indictments against 2 murder defendants. Those defendants then released on dramatically reduced bonds.
That is a problem of practice in the district attorney's office, and that is of grave public safety concern. And we should definitely take a critical look at what's happening in the district attorney's office.
Throughout this week, much of the attention has been on a case against 18-year-old Stephen Morrison. The case against Juan Antonio Ramirez has not received the same level of public attention, even though he got out of jail and had his bail cut to just $1 after it had been $1 million. Now, he remains free tonight as DA Garza tells us prosecutors are trying to figure out what to do next. Austin police worked for 18 months to charge Ramirez in an October 2022 shooting. An arrest affidavit says they linked him to the crime using eyewitnesses, security video, and forensic evidence. Prosecutors ultimately did indict him, but it was after that 90-day deadline. Under Texas law, a defendant is entitled to a bond reduction if they remain in jail without an indictment. We sat down with DA Garza on Wednesday, and I asked him about this case.
Although it was management challenges that led to the case not being indicted, we are evaluating whether it is appropriate for this defendant to remain out on bail, or whether there are public safety risks that would require our office to ask the court to reconsider under 1709.
So defense attorney Brian Erskine, he represents both of those men. He says the two cases are among several in which
Wait, rewind it to right when he ended the statement and it cut back to the reporter.
missed those key deadlines. Have been freed. Brian Erskine, he
A little
represents
bit more. Like, right. Okay. As soon as he's done talking, look at the face.
So
that's my face every single day. Go back to the reporter and he's
so
like,
defense attorney Brian. So defense attorney Brian
That's my
Erskine, he
look. Every time
represents
José
both of
Garza
those
or
men.
Sean
He
Teare
says the
says
two
something and I'm
cases
just
are
like-
among several in which defendants have been freed on bond after prosecutors in Garza's office missed those key deadlines. Quita, we're going to continue to follow.
$1. Garza needs to be removed immediately for incompetence, but you know, they tried that and that got shot down too. So
Well,
as you can see,
it's because of how it was filed.
File it again.
We need to have normal people file a petition to have these district attorneys removed. We have plenty of strong evidence of why. Now, we also have another advocate who his passion is public records, right? He loves to be able to get public records that he might not even need. He just wants to see if he can get them because he's learning, right? And he has gotten so much from the district attorney's office by public records requests that they constantly try to hide. And what he found in Travis County is Chronicle reporters sitting in their internal meetings, in their internal chats, when they're talking about cases, stuff that's not public information, how they want to do a plea, how they want to approach something. All of these things are in their internal Teams chats, and she's in these meetings and she's in these chats, and she's a reporter for the Chronicle. And she doesn't even know what she's talking about. She's in well, what does this mean? Can you explain this to me? Can I come? And these are the ones that they use to just go ahead and write these propaganda articles about how wrong we as victims are and how right they are. They have included outsiders that have no experience in this, don't even know what the terminology is, to try to help them write policies and put out articles in the press to make them look like they're doing their job. We see the Chronicle propaganda here all the time with our politicians, the way that they've always attacked the constables, attacked Kemog, and defended people like Rodney Ellis, Lena Hidalgo, and Sean Teare. It's the same thing. Those same reporters, we've got Nina over there that's sitting in internal meetings with the district attorney's office and writing about crime in Harris County. Man, but I'm sorry, stay in your lane because it's free to do that. Because what you're writing about over there, you're attacking the constables that are keeping me safe. There's a reason why I don't live in HPD jurisdiction in the city of Houston. I live in Precinct 4 jurisdiction because I know if I call the cops, they're going to show up.
Yep. Yeah. And
every single time. And she's writing an article from Travis County where they don't even have cops wanting to attack the cops that we do have that actually work.
Yeah.
Ma'am, shut up.
Yeah, and I moved out of HPD's patrol area because of the issues I was having, and I was interviewed for an article in the Houston Chronicle about our old district attorney Kim Ogg, and I spoke to that reporter for a very long time. Somehow only 2 lines of what I said made it in the article, and everything I said was very positive of all these things that Kim has done to help victims and showing compassion and showing to these events, and that I was glad she was a district attorney in Harris County, and I gave examples, and it was a hit piece because all the rest of it was negative, and there was only 2 lines of the things that I said. And yeah, that should not be okay. So that's definitely something. And if I hope that there's people out there that didn't know this. I hope that you're pissed off, and I hope that you will join us in trying to get some of this stuff changed, because we desperately need your help. There are hundreds of families, thousands of families out there that need our help, and there's only a few that are out there that are able to speak up, and there's nothing wrong with those that can't, because Michelle and I both have PTSD, but we're able to be more functional than some people. And there's nothing wrong with the other people that aren't able to function. It is by the grace of God that I'm able to be a functional human being. I have my good days and I have my bad days. And I know Michelle
People
has.
grieve differently. There is no perfect way to grieve. And so some people they can't handle it. We, and a lot of victims don't, but people like Christina, myself, you, Letty, Nancy, we've used our traumas to try to then make a difference. And so that's how we heal, is by trying to help somebody else. But then I have, somebody that was very close to me. This is, was my assistant. And he was my favorite assistant. He was the best assistant I had. Loved this man to death. And he went through the same things I went through, and he's not okay. He's not okay. We get to court to testify. He freezes. He can't even say anything. Now I'm having to speak for everybody. This man quit his job, bought land out in East Texas, and moved off the grid because he can't be around people. He can't be around people. So now he lives in the country. It's just him, his goats, his dogs, and his siblings will visit now and then. Most of his family is still in England. He's not from here, and he can't talk to people. He can't even be around people. He doesn't even go to the store. He has everything delivered because he doesn't want to see people. And I just know I have to call him every now and then just to make sure he's okay, because he didn't heal, and he's not able to heal. People crack. They break. It took me a long time I spent 5 years researching and learning before I ever stood up and tried to speak. I wanted to know, one, what I was talking about, and two, make sure you can't argue with me because I've got the facts, I got the receipts, right? Like, we're going to bring it. And then three, I'm at the point where I'm not just in absolute literal tears just from somebody trying to shake my hand, because anybody with that quick movement before, I grew up the one that was I was the protector, right? So my friends were starting shit and I had to come over here and clean it up, right? But now I'm flinching. I never flinched. Like, I'm ready to go. These hands are rated E for everyone. We are rolling. But now you try to shake my hand and I'm like, oh, don't get too close. Don't come in for a hug, because I don't like people close to me. I have this bubble and I need you to stay out of it. It's taken me 5 years just to get to a point where I can interact with the public, and not everybody has the ability to do so. And so we are a very strong group of women that have been through a lot. And yes, it is empowering, Christina, because it's the only thing we have left. That's the only thing they can't take away from us, is our willpower to enact change. And we cannot do it on our own. We definitely need the help from the community. We definitely need the help from our electeds. We have to remember our elected officials work for us. We don't work for them. And if they are not going to do what we need them to do as a society, they do not need to be in that position of power.
Absolutely.
And we're looking at a group of people. A lot of these politicians have never been a victim of a crime. They've never lost a family member to homicide, like you or Christina or Letty. They've never had stitches in their face. They've never had a gun in their head, a knife in their neck. They've never had to live with losing a child to homicide. And they want to make policies and they're the ones that are trying to decide how to keep us safe. You would think that they would reach out and listen to people who have been through these situations before they start making policy decisions and writing bills and laws that don't protect us, because they want to feel better about themselves and sleep at night because they think they're helping poor people when they're actually victimized. We have an exploding victim population.
Yes.
Every single person you talk to on the street has been through some shit. Every single one of my neighbors has been a victim of a crime. All four of them have been a victim of a crime in the last 10 years.
Yeah, which is
never
insane.
Like that.
Yeah,
you could talk to everybody on your street and nobody was a victim of a crime. And I'm talking in A-Leaf. Okay.
Yeah.
Growing up in A-Leaf, there were not a lot of people that were victims of crime on my street. In my block, it was Troy Finner before he retired. And we're at that meeting and he said that we have a very small number of people committing the majority of the crime. And if we cannot get into the community and target these people and get them off the street, we're going to continue to have issues. And so even though it's A-Leaf and crime is high, and we had these huge gang wars in the 90s, right? So Kim Ogg was on the gang task force, and Andy's over here working for the mayor for victims, and they have this task force out there, and they're the reason why the gangs did not take over A-Leaf like they did Compton, okay? But it was getting to that point where police officers told us, hey, we're not coming into Leawood. If you call the cops, you're on your own, okay? Because every time we come into Leawood, we're getting shot at, we're getting beat up. You're on your own. You policed your own neighborhood. And so we were able to keep ourselves safe by policing ourselves. That's not okay. And it took a while before HPD would even go back into Leawood. And so what do? It's martial law in the hood. Right? So who do we have fighting for us? Nobody. And so you grow up knowing you don't trust politicians. You don't talk to authority. You don't snitch. You don't talk to anybody. And don't ever tell anybody your name because they're going to call immigration. This is what you're being taught when you're young, right? And it's like, why would they call immigration? I was born here, right? But you don't know that. That's what they teach you. Like, you don't give your name, don't write your name on a sweepstakes entry because they're going to call immigration. Like, it was just, and you don't report crime and you don't talk to. And then we have someone like Kim Ogg and we have someone like Andy who's out there fighting for us. And it's like, we've never had anybody actually fight for us because we're so used to people fighting against us. And it was very refreshing to see, but now it's anybody you talk to on the street has been a victim. We have more victims than we do criminals.
Absolutely. And it doesn't matter, where you live. It can happen to you anytime, anywhere. Austin was murdered in an area where the average income is 150,000. At least it was when I checked. It's probably more now. Like, I moved from Miami from an area that I could show you on the first 48 to a wealthy suburb in Houston where he was violently murdered. This impacts, if it hasn't impacted you yet, it will impact you someday. And I wouldn't wish that on anybody. I don't wish anybody losing a loved one from homicide or having a gun put in their face. But statistically, the way things are happening, it could happen to you or somebody you love. And this is why we need your help, especially if you're in Texas, to contact those that represent you and let them know that you stand with victims.
Make them desperately need your help. Not themselves. They need to represent you, not their interests. And we cannot have these social justice interest groups influencing policy in the departments that I've talked to. We should not have anybody in the criminal justice system should be an elected person because crime is nonpartisan. We shouldn't have a Democrat or Republican district attorney, a Democrat or Republican sheriff. These people need to be hired, held accountable, and fired if they're not working because they need to work for the people. They shouldn't have loyalty to one party or another. And poor Kim, she's not perfect, but she's amazing. But the one thing that she does do is advocate for victims. There's been times that she's made mistakes, but you know what? The integrity that Kim has, she has gone out there and publicly said, I was wrong. I made a mistake. And she did that when she ran her whole campaign on bail reform, got into office, told her prosecutors, go find me everybody that's sitting there languishing in the Harris County jail. I want to know how long they've been there and how much they have to pay to get out of jail. And there was nobody. And she's like, I've been duped. I've been snowed. They've been telling me we have all these people languishing in the Harris County jail, and we didn't. So then when these civil rights attorneys wanted to start this lawsuit to start the O'Donnell consent decree, the only person they could find languishing in the Harris County jail is Miranda O'Donnell on her 5th DUI who can't afford to get out on a $5,000 bond. You know what, Miranda? Nobody wants to bail you out of jail because you have 5 offenses already. So that's the thing, too, is like you don't realize about bail bond company. They don't have to write your bond. They have the discretion to choose whatever bond they want to write because it's their business. You're entitled to a bond. You're not entitled for a bail bond company to have to get you out of jail. And I understand in those situations where you have low-level nonviolent misdemeanor crimes, shoplifting, criminal trespass, soliciting on the corner for money, those kinds of things. We don't want these people in jail. We've got cite and release, we don't have to do that stuff on those types. That's what bail reform is for. I'm not trying to have a pod full of people that got arrested for soliciting for money at an intersection and they already don't have a place to live or food to eat.
Exactly.
This is not what we're saying. But our entire jail is full of violent offenders. Again, we have 476 people in the Harris County Jail right now that are deemed above average of a danger level.
Yes.
These people are monsters, and our jail is full of monsters because everybody that has been charged with misdemeanors are not in the jail.
And you can look at that yourself. There is data that you can pull up online that shows you this.
I'll pull it up and share it here in just a second.
Like this is stuff we can look at all this. This data is there. So whatever they're feeding, saying people that have drug problems go to programs. Even when Kim Ogg was in office, they were already going to programs, but the person that ran against her made it seem like that wasn't happening when it already was.
She doesn't have diversion she started the diversion programs.
Right.
Let me pull up the dashboard.
Yeah, because we have this dashboard that shows us all that, and we can see how many people are in the jail, what offenses they have, and
how long they've been there. And that's another thing too. It's like you talk about mental health. So typically back in the day, mental health is a big problem with these people already. Like they're addicted. They've got issues like this. We need to have Harris County Jail is the largest mental health facility we have, and it's not a mental health facility, but there's a lot of people in there that are mentally ill, and they're not being able. I have another victim surviving family that I've been working with and talking to, and gosh, she's amazing. But her sister was murdered. Her sister was an addict who was in and out of the jail. I mean, every single day she's getting arrested on something. Her family is writing the judge's letter saying, please stop letting her out of jail. 4 hours later, the only way she's going to get help is if she goes to jail, she detoxes, she learns. But sure enough, they just kept kicking her out 100 times. Kicked her out. She gets out of jail. She tries to score. She's murdered. This is typically how people would receive treatment, is by finally going to jail. And just like, the inmate that I interviewed that's doing life in prison. And he said, I asked him, I said, if you didn't go to jail, would you have ever stayed in rehab? No. His dad put him in rehab 3 times and he kept walking out and leaving. And so when he overdosed, his dad refused to go pick him up. No, he's 19 years old. I've already taken him to rehab several times. He keeps checking out. I can't do this anymore. So he gets kicked out of the hospital after recovering from the overdose, needs to score, breaks into a house and murders somebody that he didn't think would be home. And he said it. I'm not going to blame my crime on addiction. Yes, I was an addict, but I am also an adult that made conscious decisions, and I hurt somebody with my own 2 hands, and I do not deserve to be out on the streets. But had I not gone to prison, I never would have gone to rehab. I never would have learned how to be a functioning human being. And I said, okay, are you ready to come out? It's been 30-something years. And he said, nope, leave me right here. This is where I deserve to be, because that family never going to have their grandma back. Okay. He said, I deserve to be here. And he even asked for, he fought for the death penalty. He wanted to be put to death. He felt like he deserved to be put to death. And his defense attorney was like, how about just life? Because you do have kids and you have family that they want to, and he's like, no. And he fought and fought and fought. And finally he decided that he would go ahead and take life in prison. And, that's what he did. And he's like, I can do more here in preparing people to go back in the streets than I can out there, trying to keep people from coming here. Now that they're in the prison, that gives me the time to mentor them and be able to keep them rehabilitated so they're ready to go on the street. I belong here.
Right.
And so we look at the dashboard. Let me share this.
Yeah, there's another family that I work with where the son in this case was murdered. He was in his 20s, but he also had a drug problem and they kept letting him out, and they should have left him in. And the photos of what happened to him it's so horrific. They're burned into my brain forever because of that. But had they kept him in there, so he could, you know, take care of himself and get clear-headed and become sober, it would have been a much different outcome.
Mm-hmm. Okay, here we go. Let's look at our population right now. Okay. We have 9,480 people sitting in the Harris County Jail, and we have 1,500 of them being sourced somewhere else because we're full, right? Average length of stay is 187 days, on medium 88. Okay, so now we're going to look at our risk, right? Oh, look, it went down to 452. And then we have, okay, so high risk, 28% of them are very high risk. These they haven't really talked to yet. And then we have average risk, 21. And then we have 1957 that were below average. So these are going to be ones that have the nonviolent felonies. But then you have these people that are considered absolutely above average. These are very dangerous people. Then we have 1,000 people in the jail on ICE holds, parole holds, ICE parole, all those kinds of holds. And then their bond amounts. Okay. But now if you look at the demographic, let's look at the demographic. This is our age group. This is our race and ethnicity. And then how many do we have on psychiatric medication? See if I can get this to, here we go.
All of them.
2,900 people are currently on medication, and only 21% of our jail are not considered mentally ill. All these people, 74, 79, are considered mentally ill. And then you look at how many were in foster care, how many, age groups, and we're going to look at our inmate counts. Okay, so this is what we have by category. These people are all on pretrial, and these are going to be your fugitives, your federal holds, the people that are on appeals. All these people have already been convicted. Okay, but now you look at the offense types. Felony 2. There's 2,200 people that have been charged with the second-degree felony, 2,000 people being charged with the first-degree felony, other violent charges, third-degree felonies, and then you have your regular felonies, your state jail. These are felonies. You're not looking at, we have everybody in the jail on misdemeanor crimes. That is not a thing. These are violent felonies that is filling our jail. These are monsters. And you have 452 of these people should never be on the street again. Above average risk of violence. Okay. So you can see this information. It's updated daily. And then you can even go and you can look at trends. You can look at the trends. You can look at what was released in the last 90 days, and you can look at history of the population. If you look at your 5-day tracking, you can see what's been coming into the jail and what's going out of the jail. So we have, last week, 291 people were booked in jail, and out of them, 106 are still there. So, you got 180 people that went to jail and turned around, came right back out. Again, look at your severity level at booking.
Yeah, I'm putting the website in the chat. So if you guys want to take a look, like you can see all of this in here. Like this data, it's there. It's I don't know why. And you can go back, you can check, you can go through all the data, because like I said, the information that we're telling you, we have the data to back it up. We're not running solely based on our feelings.
You see this pretrial release bond and GOB. So this is our PR and GOB bond. And this is in the last 90 days. We've released 5,000 people on a general order bond. We've released 4,300 people on pretrial PR bonds. We have only 4,200 that were released on surety bonds. So of these 10,000 people over here, we have 4,000 people that were released from jail with a babysitter. So they have a bail bond company and bounty hunters to make sure that your offender is going to go back to court. But these 10,000 people, they're in the wind. This is gone. This is just 90 days. 90 days. We've had 10,000 people go through the jail.
Yeah, there's a, like this dashboard has so much information. And yeah, what is the outsourced? What does that mean?
They're in that because we don't have rooms, so they're in jail in Louisiana and everywhere else, Baytown. Yeah, because our jail's too full, and they told Ed that it was not compliant, so he had to move people.
Yeah, because then you see ICE, all that. I do like the colors.
Yeah, isn't that
they've
cute?
they've done a great job.
So I will publicly thank Adrian for actually pushing for these dashboards to be put online and tracked. Thank you, Adrian, for that. Even though love you, but piss me off all the time. That'd be Adrian Garcia, our precinct 2 commissioner.
Yeah.
Pisses me off a lot, but love him to death anyway, because I know him as a person, not a commissioner. But this is a lot of what he did was having these dashboards brought out so that it is transparent. What pisses me off that they did take down was the bail bond dashboard.
Yeah.
That
Because
one disappeared.
Man, yeah, because the people that are in here, if you look at the data, it's the
Look at how many we have in jail on murder, bro. Like, come on. This is how many people.
The 2 top offenses are aggravated assault with a deadly weapon, murder, aggravated, motion to revoke, assault with a family member, like capital murder. So the only non-violent offenses that are on here are evading arrest, which they're already trying to interact with him at that point.
But again, now we're going to
Possession.
talk about society that has decided to reinvent what violent crime means. Okay, so you're talking about evading with a vehicle. That's not violent, right? Right? A 2,500-pound vehicle barreling down the street, running from the cops at 90 miles an hour that runs over your child riding his bike in the neighborhood. Tell me that is not a violent offense? You are driving a 2,000 to 3,000 pound weapon through the streets of the city with no regard to safety. You cannot tell me that that's a non-violent crime, because it is.
The only reason it's not is because nobody died. That's why.
Yet.
Because there's there's a family that comes to the POMC meetings, and it was cousins that were in an Uber together. They went out to celebrate 2 beautiful, intelligent young women. Both had graduated college with like honors and doing really well in life, and they were young, early 20s. They got an Uber. There was a police chase, and the guy's running from the police. He hit the Uber so hard the car split, and both of those young women died on the scene. So the only reason it's not a violent offense is because nobody died in that specific instant. Yes, exactly.
Correct. But it's not, but you look at that. If you look at who's in the jail right now, these are not misdemeanors. These are not nonviolent criminals. These are people that are habitual, and they're violent. And so then you want us to recruit people to work at the jail? Who the hell wants to go sit in there with people that are deemed above average of danger?
Well, and attacks have gone up on the people that work in the prisons the jails in Harris County.
Well, they're
specifically.
short-staffed.
Yeah, they're short-staffed.
They're short-staffed.
I mean, one of the deputies got
are increasingly
sexually
more
assaulted.
violent. Yes. Yeah, they're understaffed. These people are increasingly more violent. They're not getting the medical care or the mental health care that they need. Putting the jail medical staff, putting that under what's it called? Harris Health. Well, they fucked all that up too. And now Harris Health nurses don't want to work in the jail either. We've got issues with the plumbing. Our facilities are old, and we have a ton of people in there. And then what do you expect? And then how do you clear the backlog of the jail? Commissioner's Court thinks to clear the jail, we just need to let everybody out. And they tried that shit during COVID. They said, oh, we just got to let everybody out. No, you don't just let everybody out because there's a virus going around. They're still dangerous. Okay, so then they got caught doing that and had to turn around. Okay, well, we can't let felons out. We can't let violent people out. We just have to let everybody out that's nonviolent. And then, so it's like, how do you fix that? You have to clear the backlog. You have to hold trials. People need to be convicted or acquitted and get them out of the county jail because our prisons are not full. We are closing prisons because we don't have enough people in them or staff to run a facility without inmates. So get them out of the county jails that are temporary holding facilities. These facilities are not made to have anybody in there long term. You're in there pre-trial. You're in there for a few months. It's a holding facility. You get convicted or you get acquitted. You go home or you go to prison. You go to prison, you have better resources, right? So you're going to be able to go to school. You can go to work. You're going to have privacy. You're going to have your room. You're not just in this pod with 40 people all the time. Temper's way up here. Smells like shit. It's hot. The food sucks. The plumbing doesn't work. Toilets are backing up. And there's only 2 guards. And you know what they say? Well, just let them fight it out. Because if you're 1 guard and there's 23 inmates, you're not going to win.
No, definitely
So
not.
fight it out, figure it out amongst yourselves. And people are dying.
Yep.
And then what you talk about, oh, they want to make it. Well, look at this. We have all these deaths in the Harris County Jail. Guess what? A lot of those deaths are not in the Harris County Jail. They'll have people in there with terminal illnesses and they're waiting for a trial, and they go to the hospital because they're terminal. And if they die in custody, even though they're in ICU, it's considered a jail death.
Mm-hmm.
So these people aren't dying in the jail. They're dying at the hospital because they've got kidney cancer or diabetes and they're not taking their medication, or they're mentally ill. And now that, like, if you die in custody, it's considered a jail death. And then we have people like Gene that want to make a big deal over jail death. Look at all these people dying in the Harris County. No, they didn't. They died at Memorial Hermann, but cool story. And no, how did they get there? No, they were sick before they got to jail. He already was obese. He already had a heart problem. He already had diabetes. And I'm sorry that he's in jail and doesn't want to take his medication, or he's not getting the proper diet. But there's a good way to not do that. And that would be not go to jail.
Yeah.
Stop beating people up. Stop robbing people. If you have a heart problem and diabetes and you're overweight, probably don't beat the shit out of your wife 4 or 5 times and keep going to jail and then complain that you're not being treated right. Well, how about her? Who treated her right?
Right. Yeah. What about her? And we can see from the data that the people that are in Harris County are violent offenders.
Mm-hmm.
They're all, like, it's not like they're just locking people up. It's not what we're already doing what they're wanting us to do, but they're saying it's not happening.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the biggest problem. And
so now they want to fight crime holistically. We're going to put
with
out
murals and stuff.
We're going to paint murals to make people feel better about Gulfton and Pasadena. And then we're going to paint some more murals downtown of this building's got 39 random eyeballs painted on it. That drives me insane. Doesn't make me feel safe. I'm looking at this going, are they watching me?
I guess they want
why are
people
those
to...
eyeballs? I don't know. Like, it's weird. Oh, we're gonna paint over graffiti, and then we're gonna put all these murals up, and then we're gonna plant some trees, and that's holistic environmental crime safety. No.
I'm definitely curious to who's assessing these things. Some agency that they spent millions of dollars to assess to tell us that.
Oh, that would be the Arnold Foundation.
Yeah.
And Leslie Briones, who used to work for the Arnold Foundation, then was a judge and became commissioner of Precinct 4. And thank God Tom Ramsey is my commissioner. But yeah, I love Leslie's spirit. I love her soul. I love the way she presents herself in public. She is not a Bob Choate quote, petulant child like Lena. She is an adult and she is very eloquent when she speaks. And I love to listen to her talk, but she also is on the wrong side of criminal justice. She believes in the social justice reform. She truly believes in bail reform. She believes in these holistic changes. And that is great if you're a hippie, but we are the city of Houston. We are the county of Harris. We have an absolute huge problem with crime. And I don't care about you planting your trees or painting a mural. I want to know that if I call 911, somebody's going to show up.
Right.
I want to know that when I go to court, my offender is going to show up because he's been brought there by his bail agent to make sure that he went to court. We should never have situations like Elvio over here, who got convicted, was sentenced to 30 years. And the judge said, but you can go home for the weekend and say bye to your family.
Yep.
And then he's been convicted of 30 years and they sent him home to clean up his affairs and say bye to his mommy. And that dude's been in the wind ever since.
Yep. He sure has.
Who cares if he gets, you should have said bye to your, this is your sentencing hearing.
Right.
You should have you had 3 years to handle your affairs and say bye to your mommy, knowing you were about to get convicted. This is your sentencing hearing. You've been convicted. You are brought here to be sentenced. And then you have the audacity to say, can I go home and say bye, mommy, ma?
Yeah,
and
right.
That dude has been gone since.
Yeah, it's been, how long has he been on the run now?
Since what, December? It hasn't been a whole long time. But again, what? How do you sentence somebody to 30 years in TDC and say, yeah, sure, take a 3-day weekend and then
Yeah,
turn
and
yourself in and go to prison?
these are the judges that we're dealing with, making those kinds of decisions. And then this is one of my favorite quotes: "The dead cannot cry for justice. It is a duty of the living to do so for them." And that's exactly what we're doing. So I put in the chat where you guys can find Michelle, some of my links. I'm going to put some of these other links in the thread of the live that's on Twitter, and I'll add some of them on YouTube as well.
Fair warning, I am not nice to people on Twitter. So if you see me acting an ass, they deserved it. Apologize in advance.
Yeah, Michelle's a bit more unfiltered on social media than
I'm
I am.
unfiltered
So.
in real life. There is not a filter between my brain and my mouth to tell me that's probably not a nice thing to say. I'm very blunt, very open, and you're not going to fight me. So
yeah,
I'm going to say it.
And I feel like Michelle and I are going to have to make this a reoccurring thing, because there's just so much information, and there are a lot of you watching, and I do appreciate you guys watching. I really have to go to the bathroom and put my bed frame together.
And I need to feed my little ones here that are already tapping on my door. Ma'am, and then I've got this one over here. Meow. Meow.
Yeah, my cat is being good today. She's sitting. I can see her. She's didn't make an appearance in all of the 3 hours.
I locked mine in his room because he literally. Okay, so just so I could be comfortable, like I'm in my bedroom sitting on my bed, so I have my laptop on top of a laundry basket. Well, that was an opportunity for Oreo to decide his favorite place to be is under a laundry basket. And he kept trying to climb under the laundry basket and knocked my computer off several times. So he's in timeout right now, but they're getting hungry.
Yeah, and I haven't eaten yet either. I'm hungry too. I appreciate.
But we will do this again. There's
Yes.
so much. We'll pick. If anybody wants to put a topic that they want to nail down, like if you want to have a topic that's only about bail reform, if you want to have a topic that's only about how to vote for, write letters about to send to your politicians. Well, we need to have different topics that we can do a couple times a month to really just explain things and teach. My job here is to always not only advocate for victims, but for teach the public things that they don't understand, things that I never understood. When I started going through all this, all I knew from the criminal justice system is what I went through as a kid, losing people, and you're on that side, and then being on the side where you are the victim and realizing that there's a lot of misses, and it's not just an issue with the judges. It's not just issues with every single part of the criminal justice system has a problem. And until these problems are addressed and fixed, there's not going to be a well-oiled machine working together. And we're going to continue to have these misses where we have opportunities like José Garza trying to blame one prosecutor or trying to blame the judge, or Sean Teare always trying to blame Kim, and then U of H blaming him and he's blaming U of H. And you know what's happening? Everybody's pointing fingers. Everybody's taking blame. Nobody's accepting blame. And the people that have to suffer for that are the victims that are suffering from the incompetence and the miscommunication between the departments, and the constant finger pointing and blame game is going nowhere. And so until we as people can call them out on this and say, stop blaming each other. This is your fault. This is your fault. Y'all need to figure it out, because these kinds of mistakes can't happen again. Well, we're going to continue to have a POS like Garza and Sean Teare that are just constantly going to point blame at everybody else and want to go home and feel better about themselves with their private security so that they don't become a victim. I'm so scared of these violent offenders. I need my guns. But we can't have that, right? So these people want to feel better about that going to sleep at night because they're helping poor people, not realizing that poor people like you and I, we don't sleep at night.
Right. No.
How many times do we wake up in the middle of the night and we've talked to each other like, hey man, like I woke up at midnight. I've been up ever since. My anxiety, it's like, oh man, this triggered me. I mean, New Year's Eve, July 4th, those kinds of holidays, I try to have fun with my kid. He's 11. He loves fireworks. I really try it, but oh my God, I go home and cry after seeing a fireworks show, just the noise and the sounds, the smell, like and I love my guns, right? But I know that my guns have a purpose, and that's to save my life, because I can't count on the county to save my life, because they've shown me over and over they don't give a shit. But those kinds of things just trigger me. And you never know when it's going to trigger. My anxiety will trigger in the middle of the night because something happened in a dream. I wake up pissed off. I'm like, looking around. This is real. This is not anything that therapy is ever going to cure. Is it going to make it easier? Yes. Is it going to be cured? No. So until the system can work together and stop being so political and so one-sided, tell a district attorney you can't prosecute people that are Democrats because you're a Democrat. Bullshit.
Yeah.
Bullshit. You prosecute anybody that commits a crime, and you don't get to decide what laws you want to prosecute. So that's Sean Teare. I don't want to worry about prosecuting abortion crimes and everything else. You don't get to make that choice. If you wanted to be a lawmaker, you ran for the wrong position. You ran for district attorney, which means you get to prosecute no matter what the crime is. If they commit a crime, you prosecute.
Yeah.
He wants to dismantle district attorney's office and not prosecute because it feels bad for poor people, but not poor people like you and I.
Right.
The poor people that committed the crime. And so we if anybody has suggestions of what one topic that we can really focus on and teach, do that. And then we can do this a couple times a month. I just have to find a day that we can all cooperate and get down and talk. But absolutely. And I enjoy everybody listening to us and understanding what we've been through and working together as a group and being able, because you think about it, I've said it how many times, we've been brought together by our trauma. I wouldn't have met you. I wouldn't have met Christina. I wouldn't have met Letty. I wouldn't have met Nancy. Like all these people that we've met and talked to, and I now consider very dear friends, we met through trauma, but that trauma makes us strong as a group to be able to enact change so that others do not have to go through what we went through.
Absolutely.
So always here to share information and help. Always.
Yeah. And I put my email in the chat. Or if you see us on social media, you can make some suggestions. You can put some suggestions in the comments on YouTube, and then we'll figure something out. Again, I appreciate each and every one of you being here. And for those of you that are on Twitter, you might not be able to see what I'm putting in the chat. My email is jessikaforjustice@gmail.com. And I also have a link in my Twitter profile to some other stuff, or you can DM me. I'm pretty sure my DMs are open. Hopefully you don't go into the spam of porn on there. Yeah. But anyway, I appreciate Michelle being here and spending 3 hours of her Saturday with me, and I love you. And we'll be back soon. I appreciate you all. Thanks again for watching. And we need your help with this legislative session, and I hope that you're able to help us. I'll see you all next time. Bye, y'all.